ha, he, ha, ha, ho, ha, ho, ha, ha, he. Now you do it. Now. Ha, hoo, hoo, ha. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. Hoo, ha, hoo, hoo, ha. Now you do it.
1 million.
Welcome to the 2007 World Series of Poker podcast episode of the Two Fish at the Table Poker Podcast. I am Legend of Ben on PokerStars.
And I am Sam. I am East Coast Sam on PokerStars. Welcome to episode 5 of the podcast. As Ben mentioned, 07 main event. We didn't see any of the other events in the 07 World Series, even though it was a pretty exciting one. The first ever Russian player to win a bracelet, won a bracelet this year. We might be seeing a little bit more of him later. We'll find out.
And as we alluded to in our last episode, this was the start of a new era for both poker and for the ESPN coverage of the main event.
Yep, I mean, it was a very eventful year, 06, not just because the greatest poker player of all time won the main event in 06, but also the Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act of 2006. Kind of the Black Friday of the 2000s, before Black Friday came along in 2011.
Kind of the prelude, the first part of that saga of online poker for sure.
Yeah.
It had a drastic effect on the number of players that would actually be playing in Las Vegas because you think of all the satellite tournaments that would no longer be in effect, which, you know, average Joe can play for $30 at home and win a $10,000 main event seat. The Rio was expecting players of 12,000 plus for the main events.
Yeah.
If the trajectory of the event had continued from the momentum from the year prior, and instead of a record-setting main event like we had in 06, 07 had just 6,358 players, a good 2,400 fewer than the year prior.
Just 6,300 people.
I know. This would kind of be the number the tournament would kind of stabilize at for the next decade or so, plus or minus a few hundred here and there.
Yeah, I mean, even though the act had a chilling effect on the United States, I mean, poker elsewhere was growing. I mean, throughout the coverage this year in 07, they mentioned how international the field had gotten. It boomed in Russia, it boomed in Northern Europe, it boomed in East Asia. I mean, it continues to grow elsewhere, and sort of from now on, sure. I mean, Americans are present throughout the tournament. We will have American champions in the years ahead, but it's going to be more and more foreign-born players making it deep, and more foreign players making the final table and dominating the coverage.
Absolutely, and in addition to these new changes around the main event, the production on ESPN will go a complete overhaul comparatively to the relatively stable production qualities and standards of 04 to 06. So 07 would completely revamp the graphics on the screen.
Yep.
They would actually show bet sizing, raise sizing, pot size throughout the entirety of a hand on a table that had either whole card cams or the hand eventually would go to showdown, and they would be able to give the audience the players' cards. And not only that, you had a new production, new back room for player interviews, new room for Long and Norm, just a bit of a cleaner look, a bit more slick of a look.
Yeah, HD cameras this time. No, bad editing in terms of the sound. I didn't really have any problems with that. Sort of a lot cleaner and more professional. Probably a little bit more money in terms of the budgeting. For the making.
There were still some holdovers from the previous year. You had the Degree All-In moment was still in there. You still had the KFC Snacker Cam, which was pretty much as useless as it was the year prior. There was a new introduction sequence for the main events. Kind of the highlighting old players, Long and Norm's commentary kind of sprinkled in there.
Yep.
And as well as the tournament ticker, which was pretty useless the way it was handled. Every now and then they would show how many players were left or the chip average, and they're referred to as the tournament ticker.
Yeah, top 10 stacks. I always like looking at those stacks to see, who makes it to the end or not, how the chip leaders do. They almost never make it to the end of the day, let alone to the end of the tournament, which is pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Also, new music. There was a lot of new music in this year's coverage in comparison to 06, and a very different sort of range of music, when they had Jerry Yang talking about his, upbringing in Laos, they sort of use this sort of like East Asian sort of music.
Mm-hmm.
But then they have, all sorts of, dramatic tunes, like when they're doing the heads up segment right before they show the one heads up hand that we see. There's this new sort of like dun 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 sort of triumphant music. So it's interesting to sort of see how they've advanced and changed the editing process.
And then also the actual tournament, drastic change. The starting stack, no longer $10,000 chips for a $10,000 buy-in tournament. It was now $20,000 in chips to start off with. The first level would have double blinds, so really it wouldn't change the number of starting big blinds a player would have. However, this was also the year in which they changed the chips, the physical chips themselves, to chip denominations and colors that are still used to this day, with a few changes here and there to some of the intermediate chip denominations, colors and whatnot.
Right, yeah.
And for first place in this tournament, $8.25 million in between the 05 and 06 first prizes.
Right. Top 5 people make $1 million.
Yeah, so an interesting point was the payout structure.
Mm-hmm.
On minimum cash was higher. It was over 20,000 compared to what is usually kind of closer to 12, 15,000 in years prior.
Mm-hmm.
And by virtue of adding more money to the min cash, you're essentially sucking money from the higher payouts later down up the pay ladder. So while first place was still a comparable $8.25 million, only the top 5 would become millionaires, comparatively speaking, in 06, who had the top 12 being millionaires, and 05, the top 9 being millionaires.
Yeah, I think the 9th place payout was something like $520,000, which is pretty small. And then the jump between, 9th and 8th was only like $60,000.
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays it's like $100,000. Like we complain about how the payout structure nowadays, because everybody gets $1 million at the final table, is so small.
Mm-hmm.
But here it's $60,000 compared to today's $100,000. It's minuscule.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you will agree with me on this, but I think as a whole, this entire coverage this year definitely more focused on the poker, less on maybe humor or on the crazy characters.
I'd say so.
This main event spanned the new record for most episodes. It was 16 episodes.
Right. Yeah.
So getting longer than the previous of 12 the last couple of years, and that was to facilitate covering each of the individual day ones, as well as, for the most part, providing 2 episodes per day of the tournament, with one exception.
Well, one of the things that I think affected the edit was we had so many players who had been introduced previously made deep runs. So you had Scotty Wynn make a deep run, you have Gus Hanson make a deep run. So they don't have to set up time establishing these guys as characters, right? They could just sort of talk about the poker play because we've already seen these guys before.
Yeah, and I'll definitely go into this as we go along here.
Of course.
I definitely think that this was the first year where it really felt like they had a pro in the day one episode coverage that actually made it the entirety and would come back to the feature table later on, as opposed to being covered once, being on our table, and not really being shown close up later on.
Yeah, I mean, in previous years, they would always start with a pro on day one at the feature table, and they never went anywhere.
And they would usually bust on day one or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's a matter more of luck than the edit, than the ESPN edit, but, still helps this season become a little bit more different and distinct from its peers. So.
And while the rules for the actual tournament were almost exactly the same as 06, there was one key golden exception to the rule.
Except, I mean, we'll go into this character in quite some detail.
Well, and there were a few players that would almost bend the rules.
Yeah.
And never really get called out for it.
We'll get into that.
But this rule was really only pertinent for one special individual, the one it was named after.
But we will get into him in a little bit. Should we start off with Day 1A?
Day 1A, Episode 1 is Day 1A.
Mm-hmm.
We have the legend Texas Dolly, Doyle Brunson,
Yep.
at the featured table. And at actually the brand new Table 2, also called the secondary table or Table 2, was Marcel Lusk.
Ah, yeah.
And just, I want to say it now, it definitely felt like Table 2 was underutilized.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I got the impression from the first episode it was going to be pretty regularly featured, and really, they really never really cut back to it until there was like 2 tables left anyway.
Yeah.
After Day 1, it felt like.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice that it was there, that we could get a little bit more of the in-depth coverage that we see at the feature table, but I agree with you. Yeah, that should have been a little bit more there.
So Doyle Brunson at Table 1, Marcel Lusk at Table 2, and there's kind of C-plots.
Right.
ABC plot of like a sitcom. We have the Ray Romano, Brad Garrett subplots during Episode 1, which definitely brings some levity to the mix.
Yeah, I mean the first segment in terms of cutting away from the action and they're sitting in the green room talking to the camera is Brad Garrett and Ray Romano and them cracking jokes with each other. They seem to have a very good rapport with each other, making jokes about the edit that they're supposed to be getting. That's just really great. I like it a lot. Even if they're not great players, it's nice to just sort of get that a little bit of celebrity flair into it.
Yeah, this would be a pattern to begin of highlighting lots of the various celebrities having some degree of success in this main event comparative to years past. And for the most part, with Doyle Brunson, they just kind of show a lot of kind of small pots here and there.
Yeah.
Maybe that's indicative of Brunson's style in this tournament on Day 1, but not particularly memorable hands of Doyle Brunson. He gradually chips up bit by bit, and by the end of the episode, Brunson gets in some pretty horrific luck where he busts with Ace Queen flopping top 2 pair against a set of queens. All the queens in the deck accounted for. And Brunson was up 23,000 chips when he lost that hand, so he was up partially on the day. But there wasn't much of a narrative or much of a story to that sort of progression for Brunson in Day 1A.
Yeah, I mean, he was just sort of there to be there. Always nice to see him, but nothing really came
tough
of it.
luck for Doyle. Marcel Lusk, he loses most of his chips off screen, so when we really first see him, he makes the infamous "I got 2 pair" when he makes 4 of a kind, all in with like 4 chips, which is pretty funny, but it's really the only highlight for Lusk for the whole episode.
Slinging his bag over the shoulder, his little tiny bag over his shoulder.
And there's a hand where Brad Garrett accidentally turns his hand over early and then still wins the hand, which I think is always funny because the whole flipping your cards over early is just one of those poker no-nos that are almost always amusing to watch.
Yeah, we also got Devilfish appearing at the secondary table with the great line after he wins a hand just when he thought it was safe to go in the water. I love that line. Just so cool. But he busts, so we don't get much from that.
We do see Marco Traniello and Jennifer Harmon, who had been featured in previous years, with them raising 2 babies.
Very cute, even though they're now divorced. But,
unfortunate, but this is it's 50-50. It's a coin flip if the marriages will last.
It's Ace Queen versus Nines.
Exactly. And then, honestly, one of my top 5 favorite hands of the entire main event is the infamous "I Got a Call" with Jack High against quad 5s.
Oh my God!
I mean, unfortunately, we only get to see the hand from the flop onward. I would have loved to have known if something pre-flop had caused this bizarre play. This guy is Jack 7. He puts in a big bet on the turn. The guy calls. The guy then moves all in with quad 5s, and the guy shakes his head like, I guess I got a call. And Lon and Norm are just flummoxed and it's just the worst call of all time, I think.
It's got to be up there. I mean, even if you're saying to yourself, okay, I got to catch a bluff. The guy could be bluffing with queen or king high. I mean, come on. There's so many hands you beat.
The guy calls half his chips with, 10 high on the turn, and he's going to put the rest in on the river? Doesn't make sense.
Oh, God. Horrible.
And, again, Lon's reaction when the guy says, I got to call. Oh, wow. Lon, please buy me into the main event. Please. I guess it's a great comedic moment there. It's so bizarre.
Yeah. And it's just the first of many bad plays we're going to be seeing in this coverage.
That's very true.
Pretty bad.
So again, an episode, not the most exciting episode. There's a few funny spots, a few memorable moments, but the main feature table narrative is kind of a bust for me.
I agree with you, yeah.
And I noted that in this tournament with the 20,000 chips, you'd think, okay, more chips, bigger, deeper stack play.
Yeah.
By the end of day one, the last level of day one was 300, 600.
Yeah.
Which, comparatively speaking, in later years, the blind structure a little bit less aggressive on day one, actually.
Right, yeah.
Because in day two, usually would be 5,500 level. That would usually be the first level of day two, or 200, 400. So players getting shorter at an earlier phase in the tournament. Now, it would kind of balance out a bit better later, but for the early going with the 20K starting set, definitely a faster structure to start off with on day one.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's affecting the play that we see later because, people are making, 5x raises, as we'll see later on. I just still think the play, just in general, not to spoil too much, it's some of the worst play, I think, that we've seen thus far. We'll get into the final table action in particular in terms of where I see some really bad play, but...
I mean, I partially disagree. I think that the play in the middle of the tournament was, what we were shown was okay. It's more at the end of the tournament that's where I really draw the line.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get into the middle of the tournament, but I think the play overall is pretty subpar. No offense, but
episode 2, day 1B. We kind of get the grab bag of notable faces. We get a lot of players we know from years past, some celebrities. We get Joe Hashem at the Fisher table defending his deep run that was defending the first place.
Exactly, yeah.
Scotty Nguyen at table 2. But we get a lot of players shown. Jeff Lissandro, we know from 06. We see Jen Harmon. We see Paul Wasika, Kathy Liebert, David Williams and his mom. Jamie Gold's mom. Annie Duke, Montel Williams, Sam Simon, the co-creator of The Simpsons. Norm Macdonald, your favorite.
I love Norm.
And
Paul Wasika.
Yeah, a lot of players that celebrities and players that are the moms, as I call them, the two moms.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting note though, this episode, Lon actually explains the graphics with the raise.
Right.
He says this is a raise to this number, not a raise of that much more. Which I guess since it was the first time they were using these graphics, it doesn't make sense. We do see Joe Hashem talking about how he was trying to defend his championship the year prior and everything. And then again, Joe Hashem runs into an opponent who flips his hand in error mid-hand, which again, back-to-back episodes where that happened. It's very unusual.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, it's just interesting how Joe Hashem's edit changed. 05, he's Mr. Nice Guy. 06, he's a little bit, not exactly mean. There were meaner players in 06 than Joe Hashem, but, a little more stern, a little more angry. 07, he sort of returns to being a little bit nicer again. And, he just talked about in 06 how nervous he was defending his title. That's understandable. It's just interesting how his edit seems to change through time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Scotty Nguyen, on the other hand, doesn't seem to have gotten any change in his edit. No character development. Same old gregarious Scotty, even though, we see a little bit of him.
He's not in this ton.
Yeah, he's not in this in time. He busts somebody. He gets a segment in which he says something to the effect of, "I'm just like God," which, go figure, Scotty.
Yes.
But yeah, definitely he's sort of stayed the same.
We do see a bit about Paul Wasika, how his life changed after finishing in second place in the tournament. And we do see, I'm a big sucker for any sort of the dealer interacting with the players.
Oh, yes.
The hand.
Oh, my God.
Joe Hashem has a very funny moment where he kind of messes up his opponent with using the dealer as an accomplice, which is always funny stuff.
So Hashem goes, his opponent puts out a bet. Hashem goes, "You need to take the bet back." And the dealer says, "Yeah, you need to take the bet back." And the guy actually starts to reach for his chips and pull it back, and the dealer's like, "Oh, I was just kidding." It was a great moment.
Very
oh,
funny.
my God.
And then possibly the most shocking chip leader in the history of chip leaders in the main event of all time, Mr. Montel Williams somehow goes to 150,000 chips on day one. And then in impromptu fashion, loses the majority of it in very short order. When you just think about it, 150,000 chips, you could just sit on that until day two, even part of day 3 possibly.
Could ride it, yeah. Wow.
And I would love to know what kind of poker he was playing. Was he playing just?
I imagine he was hyper aggressive.
He must have been.
Chips
Must have been.
Yeah, and probably got a couple coolers or so on.
Now the nuts segment is not featured every episode this year.
Right. Yeah.
But we do get the main highlight of I guess, of the nuts is the Prop Bets Bracelet Championship, a series of real life events between it was Josh Aryeh, Daniel Negreanu, Billy Gazes, and Eric Lindgren.
Yep.
Part 1 actually covers 2 events in one segment: Wii Tennis and golf chip shots, right?
Yep, chip shots into like a cool little net which has like multiple rings on it.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And Billy Gaze is in last place with the bagel in both events. The old 10-7-3-0 first through fourth scoring system.
Yeah, I mean, this to me is like my favorite nuts by far. Just this whole prop bets thread is just like, because there's an actual narrative to it. All 4 guys are playing up to the camera.
Very fun.
Interns are getting involved in it. It's great. I just love it.
Yes,
yeah.
And I prefer this more. It's tighter paced than the future 10 years down the line, the side action championship that we'll see in 2014.
Yeah.
I prefer this version.
Yeah, because everybody's having fun. Everybody's into it. There's no money at stake or anything. I think they showed the bracelet or the trophy later. It's just some cruddy little thing. It's just great. We'll get to the greatest moment of the nuts
that's
in a moment.
That's later.
But, for now, this is just great. I love it.
So the episode kind of ends. Joe Hashem kind of tried doing the same kind of on the champ bullying of the table as in 06. Not as successful on day 1 as he was in 06, but the episode does end with one of those miracle ace king against aces where the ace king somehow pulls off the win. Which every year I feel like one of those kind of happens if ace king versus aces, but this was
he flops a straight. I mean, so credible.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so Hashem does move on to day 2. Scotty to win. He went to a lot of chips on day 1.
Yep.
He's really the first example of a top pro, quote unquote top pro, shown on day 1 in any sort of prominent role that will make it deep into the main event going forward.
Yeah. So moving on to day 1C, it's Moneymaker, at the primary table, and it's Mr. Mike Matusow, the mouth, at the secondary table. And I think it's kind of similar to day 1B in that we have these 2 big guys sort of taking a lot of the oxygen in terms of the edit, but then we get Ivy in there, we get Chris Jesus Ferguson, and we get a bunch of celebrities. Jason Alexander and Jennifer Tilly are probably the 2 most prominent ones. Phil Locke is also in there a little bit, getting pocket kings, then walking away from the table very strangely.
The thing is, though, Mike Matusow at table 2 really barely shown. He's just kind of shown folding, and then busting.
Oh, no, he fights Mr. Peanut.
He does fight Mr. Peanut, which apparently he got a penalty for, which is just hilarious.
One of my favorite Norm comments of all time is when Mike goes, "Oh, Mr. Peanut, come here," and Norm goes, "This will be a meeting of the minds." It's just great.
Now Mike says he didn't play good. He just there was nothing shown on camera, so clearly there was nothing worth really showing us.
Just gets a penalty.
Interesting enough, the one new advertising tie-in was the Planters Peanuts tying into the nuts segment, which again is a fair. I'll give them that. It's
cute.
It's a cute little tie-in there. But I did feel that the main story here, the moneymaker at the featured table, was just kind of dull.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like him talking about, in his segment being a fluke and having a bounty on his head.
Fine with that, but the actual hands moneymaker is in were kind of dull, uninteresting.
Yeah, nothing.
They
really
tried to say, he's on Nemesis at the table. I think that was much of a stretch there.
Yeah, this guy Buffer or whatever, he plays a couple of hands with him, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I recall, I was watching the outer table stuff, and didn't Ferguson and Marconi play a big hand last year also? I feel like
they may have.
I think they're at the same table in 06 as well, and that was kind of a repeat happening stance where they're at the same tables again.
Yeah, I mean, Marconi doubles up through Jesus here. But yeah, I mean, I vaguely recall that. I don't remember. I
mean, really, the only 2 highlights of the whole episode for me was Moneymaker accidentally raising.
Oh, yeah.
He puts in the wrong chips for a call, ends up counting as a raise because the rule is if you put in more than 1.5 of the chip amount, then it counts as a raise, which makes sense to me.
Yep.
You don't want any angle shooting, and you want players to be responsible for putting in the right number of chips. And the other highlight would be Prop Bets Part 2, the field goal kicking events, where they just try to do a chip shot field goal. But again, the funniest moment of the whole World Series 07.
Yep.
Billy Gay just hits the ball, misses the goal, falls on his face, and an intern, a female intern, tosses a football back towards them just for the next kick or whatever, and it clocks Billy in the head as he's lifting his head up off the ground. And just the timing, the aim, or whatever, that was just...
It's just the stars.
And it was unexpected. Like, the first time you see the shot, it just, what? Like, who hit the ball at him?
Yeah, it's a close-up on Billy. Like, they're clearly just zooming in because he fell over, and then the ball just comes into frame and just clocks him in the nose. I think it knocks his sunglasses off. And then it cuts to a wide shot of the intern throwing the ball, and she throws it, and she, like, falls, like, she puts her hands on her knees and, like, bends over because she's laughing so hard.
It's just a little physical comedy. From a poker, you wouldn't expect to see it, and it is just... absolutely hilarious.
Stars aligning, just beautiful.
So episode 4 is day 1D, the final day 1. And honestly, up to this point, I have been very underwhelmed with the 3-day ones. They were kind of a slog to get through at times.
I'd say so.
But things come right back to being fun again with Jamie Gold, our defending champ, at the featured table, and my favorite, Mr. Phil Hellmuth at table 2.
Oh yeah, this is great.
Somehow they got the two people I was most looking forward to watching in 07 in the same episode, and it is glorious.
Jamie, I mean, what a ringer he went through in 06. I mean, getting sued, having his father passing away, trying to become a great poker player, mainly through, shows like High Stakes Poker, not doing so well for himself.
Not at all.
He comes, I mean, I'm telling you, if you ever want a good laugh, go on Pocket Fives and just look up the threads about Jamie Gold that came from 06. People wanted this guy's blood. They were angry at him because he apparently didn't pay the dealers and tip the dealers after he won in 06. Something like that, which you're supposed to do, just give them a few bucks tipping the dealer. So like everybody on Pocket Fives is angry about him. So here he comes in 07 to defend his title. Just from the first line that's said about him from Doyle, is Jamie Gold the best player? No. That just sets the tone for the entire episode. It's so good. Everyone just cooking.
Just the introduction emphasizes the lack of respect for Jamie Gold as a main event champion. And honestly, if you watch the first 2 hands in this episode 4, you would agree. He loses 12,000 chips of his 20K stack just bluffing and bluffing, huffing and bluffing. But he does this move where he'll put a bet out, and then he'll look up at his opponent just as if just not a very intimidating stare, not even a very confident stare. It's just kind of a an aimless stare at his opponent.
And his talk is just so weak. I mean, Hogo mentions I saw you last year. Everybody knows what you're doing. He doesn't change his play at all. He's playing any 2 cards, even though he's got no chips. He's, oh yeah, exactly. So I'm probably bluffing. You should call. Dude, you need to change your strategy. You need to do something to modulate your play, and he's just not doing it.
And for some reason, he had a fetish of Jack 9 in this episode.
Oh my god!
He just keeps playing Jack 9. I don't know why. And so basically, Gold does kind of have a nemesis this episode, as we like to call it, Hesper Hogar. Yeah. He makes some great reads against Gold, makes some good plays to sucker him into bluffing him, or trying to bluff him at the very least. He makes a soul dead read. I can beat Jack 9 when Jamie holds Jack 9, and Jamie literally stops mid sentence when he says Jack 9. Now Hogo does end up losing that hand, but nonetheless he makes a mockery of Gold in his play.
Just brilliant. And the classic line, which is in Gold's segment, which he's summarizing 06, he's summarizing his lawsuit. He's saying I was always going to pay Crispin Laser. I was just trying to figure out the taxes. It looked like 6 months. It actually took 1 day.
Such a joke. I mean,
such a joke. I mean, oh my god.
You think about it, if you cut the money in half, $6 million, and then the Vegas tax, probably $4 million, you take away then all the money he lost in all the tournaments. He probably didn't have much left at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he paid Johnny Chan 10% of his winnings.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how can you win $12 million and it's just all gone like
I mean,
that?
Gold is shown playing numerous hands, so he wins 2 hands. One's an all-in where Steve Zolotow just completely misplays pocket eights against Gold.
Yeah.
The other one is a small bluff that he bluffs off Hogo, but it's just pretty much Gold going down, 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 bad bluffs, bad folds, bad plays all around.
Yeah.
And it did seem like the editors maybe had something against Gold in this
Oh
episode because they
God,
did not make him look good in any way. At the very least, Gold does acknowledge at the end he did play poorly,
right?
Which is true, but at least he's honest about it and can be transparent about that.
No, I mean, they buried him in this edit. Like, Lon's summation at the end of the episode is Jamie Gold's play impressed no one. That's his exact words. They just buried him. I mean, that hand where he and 5 others go to the flop, and then the turn hits everybody, and the guy bets out, and Jewel just, like, starts screaming and swearing as he's folding his cards. Like, or the hand with the, you're saying he didn't have an ace, that hand?
Yes.
Like, they picked the hits that would make him look as worse as possible.
Well, that hand you talk about, so 4 players saw the turn, and on the turn, 2 players make a flush and 2 players make a straight.
Right.
And Gold has a straight, and it's the 4th best hand of 4 players, and it's just some funny stuff.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Yeah. And again, I love the A line of this, the A plot of this episode, but the B plot is Mr. Phil Hilm.
Oh yeah, we gotta talk about him.
He was on table 2. He pretty much just folds his way out of contention.
Yeah.
But he enters his grand entrance this year is in a race out like a NASCAR kind of motif, a NASCAR uniform. They show he was practicing driving a NASCAR type vehicle, and during a practice run he ends up driving it into a pole in the parking lot. Which is funny enough as it is, but then the very next shot is him like holding his neck like it's still hurting, like twisting his neck. It's just really funny the editing of that.
Yeah.
And so Helmuth, he makes a great fold actually in a hand he plays poorly.
Oh yeah.
But he just ends up losing a hand. He's not shown winning a single hand.
Yeah, that's true.
He ends up all in with 1 big blind left somehow, which is bizarre. And by my calculations, he arrived late. I think he only lasted like 1 level.
Yeah.
He blows through his whole start in about 1 level, really. It's not his best work by any stretch of the means.
And then we get a very cute hand from Jack Urey.
Jack Urey, the C plot, arguably the oldest player to ever play the main event. He talks about in the segments that he's interviewed in. Mm-hmm. He has the most experience. He's played with everybody you can name. There's a great situation where he is at showdown in the hand. He says, "I've got a straight." And the guy said he misreads his hand. It's like the board's like king, 8, 10, 3 or something. And he thinks he has a straight. He puts over, he's on 6s. And the guy says, 6s are good? 6s are good! And then the whole crowd erupts. Woo! As Jack goes up. And Jack is like, the noise is like too much for him. He like practically holds his ears, his hands over his ears.
He's 94 or something, so.
He will, that's probably the second best Jack Urey moment of all time.
Yep.
We'll get to the first best in a later episode. But I enjoy seeing guys like Jack Urey in the main event. It's just kind of, I enjoy seeing that kind of thing.
Yeah, and we also get the first appearance of Hal Labarsky in this episode.
Hal Labarsky, the blind player with a card reader.
Mm-hmm.
That's a story that they'll kind of cover later, so we'll cover that a little bit later, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But, so yes, unfortunately, both Helmuth and Gold meet their day 1 demise. Luckily, Helmuth would get some redemption in later main events going forward, but by this point, our defending champ, despite the last couple of years, the defending champ making a decent run of it, that streak comes to an end in 2007.
Yep, we do. I mean, Jamie Gold does pop up in the finale hanging out with Phil Hellmuth for some reason. Because typically the previous year's champion will come in to give the shuffle up and deal announcement right before the final table, so that's why he was there. But yeah, our good friend Jamie Gold, will not be seeing much of him going forward. So
Jack Urey does survive today too.
Yeah.
As does Carlos Mortensen, Gus Hanson, Negreanu, Hal Labarsky, Michael Binger, Gavin Smith, rest in peace.
Yep.
And Jack Urey, by the way.
Yes, rest in peace.
And so by the end of all the collective day 1s, day 2 begins with 2,336 players. But Day 2 would be divided into Day 2A and Day 2B.
Yep.
I don't believe they really cover which Day 1s break up each Day 2A
that's true. They
and
didn't
2B.
mention that.
They didn't go over that. But we can infer from the players shown that with Scotty to win, it was probably Days 1A and 1B, and then Day 1C and 1D divided, maybe. But oftentimes the last Day 1 is the biggest one, so for all I know, it could have been Day 2A, B, C, and then 2D.
Yep. Yeah, something like that.
So, thoughts on Day 2A for you? What are your thoughts?
Thoughts on Day 2A. So we go back to the sort of Win-Hashem dynamic with, I think, Win's on the secondary. No, he's on the feature table. Yeah,
for a little bit.
Yeah, with Professor Nincompoop appearing beside him. I mean, coming down from Day 1D with, the gold fiasco, shall we say, Day 2A was a little bit more about the poker playing than it was sort of about the big personalities. But still, I still found this was an okay episode, if not,
I came into this episode thinking it'd be the Scotty to Win show, but really it was more of the Miami John show.
Yeah, exactly.
By the end of it.
And Miami John, he's a decent personality, but he's not as personable as Scotty Win was.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
We do see some more of Montel Williams in this episode.
Yep.
The two moms, as I call them, David Woods' mom and Jamie Gould's mom. Sable Cohen, the last woman standing from 06.
Yep.
And the feature table here. We have Kirk Morrison introduced, kind of a pro of an interesting kind of in and out of poker in the years prior. Joe Seabach, who I guess I learned was Barry Greenstein's son, which I'm surprised with a different last name. But
yeah, I know, huh?
Isn't that strange? And then Brad Garrett, Sam Simon, Huck Seed, all briefly shown here and there. We do get an interesting character at the feature table against Sable Cohen. I call him Mr. Balloon Animal.
Yep. Mr.
Balloon Animal. He makes a very interesting, complex balloon animal for Sable Cohen after he beats her in the pot.
And I love how they set it up, how they show him he's kind of struggling with his balloons. So you're thinking oh, this Joker, but then you actually see it's actually really impressive.
Yeah,
I thought it was pretty cool.
There's definitely some art to that, some talent needed for that, for sure.
Yeah, overall, this episode, there's a couple nice moments like the balloon animals, but I don't think it's as big of a highlight as Day 1D was. We get Kenny Tran for the first time, but doesn't really do anything. Sam Simon talks for a little bit, okay, he's a celebrity, but, he's not a super personable guy. He's not a great player. He makes a decent run here, but, there's just really not that much to this, I think.
This episode kind of hammered in the 4x pre-flop raise standard for me.
Yeah.
That was no observation I had. The majority of this episode is actually spent in the first level shown. Day 2. The 500, 1,000 level. Scotty to Win makes a big hand with quad nines.
Oh, yeah.
And Norm tried to say, it's not over yet. It could be a fifth nine for a foul deck, and which is true. I always hope for that.
That's true, yeah.
But so Scotty to Win wins that hand, gets a lot of chips. He gets moved to the center table, and he actually had lost a lot of his chips off screen.
Yeah.
So we didn't really get a great idea of how his day went from one table to the next, but it's just I think I noticed. Obviously, that's that way.
Yeah, that's kind of the story of his whole play for this tournament. Kind of just up and down, back and forth throughout. It's pretty. But
for the most part, they tend to show more of the hands he wins.
Yeah. Until
the very end.
That's true. Yeah, but it's very interesting to see how he kind of just went up and down, in and out of contention throughout the tournament.
By episode's end, Jane Gold does bust, but Shirley Williams does survive. So one mom still in for Team Mom.
Team Mom.
Hashem bust, Brad Garrett out, Monta Williams finally goes from chip winner to out. Barry Greenstein's out, Wasika's out, Joe Seabach out. But episode 6 is the second totally separate Day 2.
Day 2B. Yep.
There's no misleading editing. I can just tell that this was a separate day of poker, with the main highlight, of course, being Mr. Daniel Negreanu.
Yep.
At the feature table the entire episode. A very up and down day for him, where he plays pretty darn good.
Oh yeah.
Until the very very end.
Yeah, we actually get to see his play and what he's known for, making the crazy reads that he does.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is nice.
But something I noticed, though, is that if you look at Negreanu's stack during the introduction of the episode, and then his stack when the episode first begins, he actually lost half his stack before the episode really kicked in.
Interesting.
So when he doubles up on hand 1, he's really back to his starting stack level for Day 2.
Okay, that's weird.
which I guess maybe they wanted to focus on the rise and then the fall.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I just feel sick of editing transparency. It's something I always will notice.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to build storylines. I understand that, but it couldn't be hurt to be a little more honest. That's
We do get to see, for the very first time this episode, Mr. Havad Khan.
Oh, yeah.
And his first celebration, his rambunctious, loud, energetic Red Bull-fueled celebrations.
Don't worry for the headphone users. We were not going to try to mimic them, so you can guys keep... The first time we actually see him, it's him losing a hand to Gus Hanson, though, which is interesting in terms of a story-building level.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We do see Mr. Celebs,
Yep.
one of the celebs to cash on the 06 main event, to also make a deep run in the 07 main event.
Mm-hmm.
We see Mr. Teddy Monroe, Iceman, former player in the drug scene, spent years playing poker in prison, which is interesting, to say the least. I wonder what the stakes are there.
Yeah.
And trying to go from the streets to the jail cell to the poker scene.
I mean, it's interesting that they hype him up, but then he doesn't really do anything.
And I mean, they pick people out of the field, and then they probably pull them aside during a break and get a quick interview, and then throw them back in because they don't just to have content ready to go. So kind of is what it is. We do learn more about Mr. Halubarsky, his progressive blindness, that he had retired from live poker and been on playing online poker with a couple of friends with the computer, and then they managed to talk to Jack Effel and figure out a compromise for him to be able to play the main event because Hal was threatened to kind of like, I probably get more money suing you than playing poker, so you might as well just let me play.
Well, all that the other player does is just tell Hal what cards he has and what the action is. Right. So it's not 2 players per hand at all.
Not at all.
So it's a totally reasonable accommodation. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The first hand of D-Neg is doubling up in the episode, and then he wins a couple of big hands where he flops a set, doubles up and not a player, and makes some good reads, which are both good reads to fold and good reads to call or good reads to float and whatnot. Again, reading these amateurs very well. It's kind of you would back on the YouTube era of a couple of years ago. These would be very common hands. You'd see D-Negs reads people's souls or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Obviously, cutting out the hands where he did not make a read. But,
yes, and unfortunately, his momentum kind of hits a problem with Mr. Kyle Morris, a former poker dealer with his iPod Shuffle. Oh yeah. Morris takes a big couple of hands off of Negreanu with some luck and some bad timing, really, for Negreanu. Yeah. He makes Negreanu ends up folding a straight when Morris rivered a flush. Mm-hmm. Again, a very, very, very impressive. Impressive read. Yeah. Sully Erna on the hour table hits a runner to survive and does a tongue celebration, which Lon is not a huge fan of. We do see the final part of the prop bets, the nuts trilogy, which begins with a really long, unneeded recap. Of all the earlier events. Mm-hmm. When you just want to get them to get to it, and it's a dodgeball game, which is again 2-on-2 dodgeball is a little strange.
It is weird, yeah.
But it's team based, but it's individual based, so it's strange. But the end result is, of course, Negreanu wins the championship, which is ironic given that he does not win this championship of poker. I'm sure he would trade the prop bets bracelet for a real bracelet any time.
But Billy Gaze does redeem himself with a pretty sick catch
on the
dodgeball court. So we got to give him props there.
Absolutely. The episode does end with Negreanu busting. Mm-hmm. He misplays 10-8 offsuit in just bizarre fashion. He has it was awkward. 25 big blinds at this point. He had lost a lot of chips, so he was trying to obviously rebound to end the day on a strong note, but I just do not understand why. And also, while Negreanu makes the opening raise of 10-8 offsuit, a player folds and flashes one of Negreanu's 10s, so he just very bizarre.
Very odd, yeah. And in terms of the moneymaker segment, we haven't really been talking about him. There's this sort of, he busts briefly, and we don't really see very much of Moneymaker at all sort of throughout these early episodes. Mm-hmm. Which, again, is just kind of interesting that, Moneymaker has this sort of very prominent image during these early years, talked about a lot, but yet we don't really see much from it. We don't really see much of his play and how he's improved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no table 2 coverage in this episode. They really, either they didn't have anything good there, or they wanted to focus on Daniel Negreanu and the tables. So, again, even at this early part of the tournament, they don't use that table 2.
Yeah.
We do lose Jack Erie and his grandson in this episode. Billy Gates' bus, Jason Alexander bus, Alan Cunningham bus, Steve Denman bus. Really, the prominent guys that are still in would be Havad Khan, Gus Hanson, Sully Erna. And by the end of day 2B, with day 3, the entire field finally in the same room all at once, which is pretty much the day 3 standard for the main event going forward up until this day.
Yep.
But day 3 broken into 2 parts.
That's right.
Part 1 is the quote-unquote bubble episode, which I used to just love, but these have been really much of a letdown for me up to this point so far.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with 797 players left with 100 eliminations until the money, and I don't know, there's just something about that just doesn't really establish tension very well leading up to the money.
They'll do a much better job in later years for sure.
Yeah.
Clearly the focus was not on the bubble at this point because they had other plans in mind with the edits.
Yeah.
Which, again, okay. I mean, Gus Hanson begins this episode as the chip leader with the whole tournament, which is pretty impressive. You don't often see a top pro as number 1, maybe top 3 or top 5, but never quite number 1.
And Khan's second.
Khan is second to start the day.
Pretty crazy.
Absolutely. We do see at the feature table, Carlos Martinson, Gavin Smith, and Gus Hanson are all together briefly. Not for the whole episode, but for briefly they're all together. We do see Gus Hanson, a bit more about him, his reputation, of how he plays, his use of mathematics, how he is a math guy a little bit too. Even though he's got a kind of a loose, Radcliffe-style reputation, that kind of contrasts with it, and his infamous tape recorder, which he'll, whisper into it his thoughts on somebody, which we see him talking to it, but never actually listening to it. So it's kind of amusing to me.
Yeah, I guess he speaks Danish. I guess he's just speaking in Danish. Just sort of strange.
Yes. The nuts segments this time no longer the prop bets. Does do with the superlatives.
Yep, not the flushies. These are superlatives.
Like a yearbook superlatives.
Yeah.
And again, not all that interested really. We do see hand-for-hand play begin with 10 players left.
Right.
In my recollection, I feel like 10 left before the bubble is a little bit early from what it usually is.
Yeah, I think it's usually like 1 or 2.
1 or 2, maybe 5, maybe even.
Yeah, 10's too much. It slows play down way too much.
I wonder though if that was because of how deep the average stack was.
That could have been. Yeah, I still think 10's too many.
I agree.
Yeah.
We do see Chris Ferguson bust to Mr. Lee Child this episode.
Yep.
Who will be a final tableist going forward, so we do see him a little bit. And that kind of brings a thought to me. This main event that was actually made by complete luck or by random chance. We do kind of see all of the final table in some capacity from the middle of the tournament onward in some degree, much better than years past. Everybody going down the line of the final 9, everyone's kind of shown, even if not an interview for them or a hand of them from start to finish, they are shown on camera at some point.
Yeah, I mean, in this episode, we see Kenny Tran as he's stacking up chips after a pot. You can see Raymond Romney's near him. So, I mean, that's definitely
everyone's
the case.
there. And as I was doing this rewatch, this was actually my first time watching this episode ever.
Same here.
I had never seen the episode. I had seen the majority of the episode main events, whether it was on ESPN years ago or on YouTube or whatever. But somehow this one slipped through the cracks.
Yeah.
Which, again, added that novelty factor. It's not a particularly standout episode for me in the slightest. I didn't feel there were any memorable hands. And nothing I put top 5 or top 10 for the main event. But, again, Gus Hanson, we can see more about him, so it was not a total wash.
Yeah, a couple fun lines. What comes to Vegas stays with Vegas. I like that line. A couple little appearances here and there. When Sully Erna doubles up, if you look in the background, you can see Cliff Josephy there.
Yeah. Yeah,
so all these sort of little faces trickling in and out, going in
and by the episode's end, a fair number of players that we do know from years past are in the money.
Yep.
Umberto Brenes, Kobe Maguire, Sam Simon, Marconi, two Brunsons, Todd and I'm blanking on the...
Me too, actually.
Sister Brunson, but Sister Brunson we'll call her. Huckseed,
Mm-hmm.
Kenny Tran. Again, a fair number of people that you would know if you had watched 03 through 06 up to this point.
Yeah. No, massive names beside, I guess, Scotty Wynn, but yeah.
Day 3, Part 2 is Episode 8, and I call it kind of the Tran episode because we have not only Kenny Tran, we have JC Tran, and JC Tran's brother. Kenny and JC Tran are at table 2, JC Tran's brother at the feature table with Havad Khan.
Yep, who's presented right at the start of the coverage, sort of hyping him up.
Yes.
Always nice to see.
And, my theory is his sort of rambunctious, rowdy nature at the our tables earned him this featured table spot.
Of course, yeah.
Like, they were like, we got to get that kid. He's got a lot of chips. We're getting him for our table 1.
Yeah, of course. I mean, come on. They have their eyes out. They've got, employees prowling before finding the right person.
So, in this episode, we have 3 Trans, 2 Brunsons, 5 former champs, 1 loud Havad Khan, among all the pros that we've mentioned have gotten through the buddy bubble into the money. We do have, improbably, somehow, Sully Erna sitting next to Tobey Maguire in this episode. Like, 2 of the arguably most prominent celebs left in the tournament at this point. Table neighbors.
Yeah, and they were pretty decently sized celebrities back then. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, this is only a couple of years removed. Oh, no, I guess this is the same year as Spider-Man 3.
Yep, same
the
year.
Summer of 07, Spider-Man 3. So, but then, even just writing off of Spider-Man 1 and 2, his infamy from that.
I love how he wears a hat and he's like trying to conceal himself, but it's still recognizably Tobey Maguire. Like,
absolutely.
You can tell.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Havad Khan, we learn a little bit about him. We'll learn more about him later on.
Yeah.
But he has some self-awareness, knowing he's kind of a clownish, kind of buffoon character with his celebrations, which is interesting. And he kind of goes on an up and down journey in this episode. He wins a few hands early, overplays a few hands later with some chips, and then the kind of the grand finale of the episode is Havad Khan going a little turbo crazy with pot queens, running into aces and flopping glorious quads.
And you can tell, like, he knows how lucky he got. He even says that he sucks.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean,
quad queens, the overhead guy says.
We learn, more about Khan's biography later on, but I think we get a good sense of his personality. And we can tell, like, the guy's having fun.
Yes.
He's not doing this to be annoying or to try to necessarily get an edge on his players. He's having fun. He recognizes that he's, not the greatest player in the world. When he plays a hand, he doesn't talk.
And obviously, we imitate him in our intro here, but
yeah.
He does his celebration. He tries to gesture to the crowd to kind of repeat his kind of weird celebratory mantra, and there's just crickets, and it's just so funny.
How it's edited is just so great. It just cuts to the crowd, and everybody's just stone.
And then Long Arm are laughing.
Oh, it's so good.
So good. Dara Manieri, Mr. Harry Potter,
yeah,
in the main event with his Harry Potter-like scarf. He jumps up the leaderboard up to 2.4 million. He knocks out Mr. Todd Phillips, director of Joker. We meet Mr. Moonves, a Hollywood lawyer.
Yep.
Kind of another celeb-ish kind of thing, kind of celebrity adjacent like Sam Simon kind of is.
Yep.
We do lose the last mom of Team Mom, Shirley Williams.
Yep.
Both Brunsons do bust. Havad is just funny. And in retrospect, the Red Bull, the bulldozer, the Mentos.
The Mentos, yeah.
He kind of gets... Oh, there's a great scene at a hand where a player who's deaf kind of reels him in with a hand, and he does a great little gesture where we're reeling a big fish, and Havan even has the table tap, nice comment to say to him about
I mean, Havan's smiling, like he can tell, like, he's loving the moment, he's having fun. I just miss it. I miss it so much that we just don't have these characters anymore. We get a little bit from Umberto Brenes, getting an autograph from Tobey Maguire, which is just great. I just love stuff like that. Yeah.
This episode does introduce probably the most controversial chips of all time. These peach, kind of pinkish orange 25K chips. I guess we didn't cover the chip colors earlier, so the chip denominations introduced now. We have the green 25 chips, the sort of black-blue 100 chips, the blue 500 chips, the sort of yellow with a little bit of purple 1K chips, orange 5K chips, and then the controversial 25K peach chips, which if you read on Wikipedia, you can see that the similarity from a distance, if they're in stacks, they look too similar, so it would be difficult for players to figure out the exact chip counts of their opponents.
Yeah, I mean, when I was watching this, especially toward day 6, like the chips just all look the same.
And then after the 20, now we're not quite there yet, but the next denomination would be the 50K like pink chips.
Yeah,
like these, it's this weird like tropical punch, like Hawaiian punch motif chips in play here, and I don't understand why you need to have 25K. 50K and 100K all in the same.
That's weird.
It's very unneeded. They had 50Ks in previous tournaments, but I would have thought they would have worked that out because they get rid of those in the next year.
Yeah, it's very strange.
The very popular lavender 100K chips.
Yep.
First appear here, and then beyond that, the beige 250,000 chips are the last denomination used by the very end.
Yeah, I mean you just can't tell them apart. I'm like, what the heck is that?
Yes.
I just see a bunch of chips. Well, how many does he have?
But we mentioned Dario Manieri.
Yep.
He becomes our table captain on episode 9, day 4, part 1. Dario with about 2.4 million, and that is significant because there was a very wide margin between first and second place on the top 10 chip count. So Dario was clearly playing very aggressive, big stack, big gamble, big risk, big payoff poker.
Yep.
And you would think of with the blinds like 3K, 6K at that point, 2.4 million, he'd have a monster stack. But really, they gave him so many of the 25K chips, he just kind of has 2 stacks that are worth 1 million each, and then a few smaller chips around it.
Yeah.
So very unusual how they must have colored up his chips at that point.
Yeah, it is odd. And we do get, quite a bit from Dario Manieri in this episode. He mentions that the only reason he's wearing a scarf is because he has a cold and the AC is on, which I thought was kind of funny. And just how young he looks and how young he sounds, and how he won a car in a tournament, but he can't drive it.
It's just a funny situation for sure. With 337 players left on day 4, Dario's in first, John Kalmar in third, Hamad Khan 4th, and I believe it was Tran, I think that was the brother of JC Tran, in 5th. The 5 former champs still all alive. They all survived the previous episode. 6 women left. And, a good number of celebrities still alive at this point.
Yeah, pretty good mix of players going into this episode,
The featured table, besides Dario, does have Julia Gardner, our runner from 02. We do have Philip Hilm. And we do have Mitch Garshovsky, who kind of pops up in times you wouldn't expect in this main event prior to 2016. And Gus Hanson arrives to the day 4, late of his shirt and pants, it's just like half dressed, like it looked like he was just like ran out like Mr. Bean style, like trying to get dressed before he's late.
Great Norm line. If you're going to have a one-night stand at the main event, at least change your shirt in the bedroom area. Wow. And Kenny Tran arrives, he's taking a phone call. Like, what did these guys doing last night? Jeez. Yeah, very strange.
So, I mean, your thoughts on Dario Manieri's 2.4 million blow-ups? I mean, you're talking 400 big blinds. You could basically fold your way to the next day. You just sit around and wait for some big hands. I mean, I know that if it was you, you'd probably be just playing tight at that point.
Yeah, I mean, when I have a big stack in a tournament, I try to play tight, right? I try to conserve the amount of chips I have. If I have a little bit fewer chips, I might play a little bit more loose. But by a little bit more loose, I mean I will consider limping in with ace-jack in comparison. I'll consider it, yeah. I mean, I think this is a thread that runs throughout this coverage, are these very aggressive players. You get a lot of chips and then blow them all down. And the ethos, it seems to be amongst these players is, I'm gonna play to the death. I'm gonna make all the pots huge. I'm gonna put maximum pressure on you, and that might work every now and again. The player who eventually wins this tournament, it kind of works for him, kind of.
Yeah.
But I mean, over and over again throughout this coverage, we just see, I guess supposedly with Montel Williams, that must have happened. But with Dario, I mean, it's the first real clear example of that he gets a bunch of chips, he's playing way too aggressive, and he just blows it all because he's playing every hand and he's making the pot so big.
And I feel like if you're at the same table as a big stack like that, and you're seeing one player double up and blow up this guy, he's going to try to get those chips back and overplay a hand. So it's kind of a snowballing effect.
Yeah, that's something that I noticed this year too. That a lot of players would lose a big hand and they'd like go to rescue their chips in the next hand. They just lose more chips.
Absolutely.
You can't do that. You lose a big hand, just fold the next hand unless you have aces or kings. Like seriously, calm down.
I think that is not any more emphasized than it is when Dario moves all in with a pair of sevens against I forget her first name, Mrs. Blair.
Yeah,
she makes a snap call with second pair on a paired board.
Crazy.
And doubles up because she can sense that Dario is just playing way too crazy.
Soul read. I mean, yeah, crazy.
How Lubarsky does bust in this episode, he kind of blows it in a sense. He goes all in with a straight draw and gets called by a set. I mean, it's still a very impressive run for Lubarsky, but you have to wonder, do you really have to play like that? I mean, what do you think your opponent has at that point? You know,
really disheartening moment. Like they mentioned on the coverage, you know, look how disappointed they are. They really look disappointed, the whole Lubarsky and his reader. Like, it's just heartbreaking to see that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you're sort of like the first, shall we say, sort of like charity player. Like we had William Rockwell, who was the guy who had no arms.
Yes.
And we had the guy who had cancer and survived, and both of them sort of busted early on. He's sort of the first sort of like charity, you know, inspirational case to kind of actually make a deep run.
I know,
so it's nice to see that.
It's a shame that you kind of blows it all up
yeah,
before, though.
I know. Yeah.
Not only does Lubarsky lose, we do lose Carlos Mortensen.
Yep.
We do lose Sully Arna and Sam Simon.
Yeah.
Toby Maguire busts after losing a lot of chips to OD, Donica OD, whose son would later be a final tableist in 2011.
Yep.
We do get to see a bit more of Kravchenko.
Yep.
And we do see John Moonves moving on to the next day.
Yep. And we see Philip Hilm briefly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So again, by chance, but we do see a lot of these final tablists in these early goings of the tournament prior to the last few tables, which is again good to kind of see that happen, considering we had so many main events where we just had people we did not know.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's very nice
into the final. Day 4, part 2. Things get a bit more real. We do see Scotty win back on the feature table, as well as Gus Hanson.
Yeah.
So again, kind of a sequel later in the tournament. We don't often see the same players return because they just often aren't in it long enough to make it to that point.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah.
We do see Tuan Lam for the first time in this episode. Maria Ho at the start of her kind of poker celebdom as a prominent female poker player.
Yep.
We do see Daniel Alai, Billy Baxter, and Chad Brown, rest in peace.
Yeah.
Table 2 has Brennis and Kirk Morrison, who kind of pops in and out pretty prominently in this main event here and there.
Yeah.
At the outer tables, we do see Dario double up through Philip Hilm to get him back up to 1.4 million. He'd basically, by that point, blown to $1.8 million at that point.
Can't imagine that.
And then he knocks out Deb Blair and gets back somehow miraculously into the chip lead at 2.6 million.
Crazy.
I would have loved to have seen what those hands, the Deb Blair hand was, though. We don't get to see what that was. Against Philip Hilm, though, he was all in with a king queen high on a straight draw. Hilm had a straight flush draw, and Dario does a straight like shrug to the camera like, what? Like, how am I in this situation? When he moved all in with king high. I mean, how can you complain about that?
Crazy.
We do learn kind of a sad backstory of Scotty to win. The day after he won the 98 main event, he lost his brother. Kind of a bizarre sort of swing of karmic fates in a person. You have to, and he would have traded that win for his brother back, which it pulls at your heartstrings for sure.
Yeah, I mean he's got his bracelets on and everything. He doesn't wear his main event bracelet just because of that. The day after he wins that tournament, his brother dies. Like, horrible.
And he never knew he won probably because the time difference between Vietnam and America.
Sad,
we do meet Paul Spitzberg. We kind of learn about him. And then we see the diversity of the players that are still alive at this late stage in the main event.
Yeah.
Again, the main event in 07, really kind of 07 onward, it'd be more of a international fest, World Series, not American
Truly
series.
a World Series, yeah. We get Mickelson, who's the chip,
Dog Martin Mickelson, who really kind of has the first chip tower empire of the tournament. This would be kind of a trend in the main event for a while where at a certain point, with the chip coloring up and the chip stacks and the day 4 where a lot of players bust, you'd kind of see these just chip monster empires, not enough of the high number of chips to kind of minimize the stack size, which I feel the main event nowadays does way too much of introducing too big of the denomination chips too early on, which prevents. I'm okay with not seeing these chip fortresses, but I want to see a solid 20 stacks of 20 chips. I don't want to see these little one little stack here, one big stack. It's just not entertaining to watch.
I want to see a chip fortress. I just love just seeing the sprawl of chips that like the chip leader has. I just love seeing that. Yeah.
So Doug Martin Mickelson, he is a young guy, young kid. He is a chip leader, 3 million chips. He makes this kind of funny little, I raised the wrong color chips with aces move, which, again, kind of an angle shoot, but I think the table kind of is okay when it's with the aces.
Right, yeah.
He mentions how the Norwegian papers back home are like, look at our boy, how he's doing in the tournament, which is not unique just to him. Marcel Lusk had that same coverage in years prior. I think Philip Hilm.
Phil mentioned that. Raymond Rami mentioned that. Yeah, it's kind of a thread that happens over and over again in these countries. It's just interesting.
Probably the most human moment for Havad Khan is after he wins a pot and celebrates, a guy at the table asks him to act normal after he wins a hand, and he actually said, I was at that request.
Yeah.
He just kind of plays it out. He kind of plays that pretty well because there's I'm not really sure who's right or who's wrong in that situation,
My opinion is just let Khan do his thing. That's my opinion. I'm sorry. I mean, again, I'm looking at this in 2021, seeing how the game has evolved and become a lot of game bots, frankly, a lot of just people with their hoodies and their headphones on. There's no personality. But Khan's, again, he's having fun. He's in the moment. Just let him do his thing. And, don't take this so seriously. You're throwing in some chips for a living. That's what you're doing.
That's fair.
Yeah.
This episode has one memorable hand for me. It's Bang Heart against Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Pocket 9s against pocket 10s. The board runs out 2 9 queens, so Bang Heart makes a set of 9s. Turn comes a 10. The 10s outrun him. The river pairs the board with a deuce, and it's just as far as big hand against big hand, that's as close as it gets in this tournament.
Yeah, Pittsburgh turns away from the table, and so as the river is being dealt, Scotty yells, 9! So he thinks he's lost. So mean.
Interesting enough, Norm comments on the chip colors during this episode, how they're hard to, they're not the same shade of orange or anything, but from a distance, or you can't quite tell if stacks are stacked together, you can't really, it's totally a fair point.
Yeah, it's a fair point, yeah.
And by the episode's end, we only have 2 women left. We have McLaughlin and Maria Ho, and then we do lose Varconi and John Moves.
Yeah. Something we haven't mentioned thus far is supposedly this episode is supposed to be, Win versus Gus, but we only get one hand at the end where that happens, and nothing really happens in that hand. It's kind of interesting how they set it up like that, and then nothing happens.
I know. Poker is not so simple as it's 2 players at the same table. They're going to have to square off because really, if you think about it, 9 players at the table.
Yeah.
You have a 1 in 8 chance to play somewhere else heads up, and it's not going to happen every time.
Yeah, it's just interesting that that's the edit. I mean, they know how that table played out. They can surely adjust the coverage in some way, but they still try to do that, which I think is odd. Yeah.
Day 5 begins with just 112 players left. Blinds 10K, 20K. Again, we have a healthy number of players, pros, people that have been spotlighted by this point, still alive. All the celebs by this point, though, are out.
Yeah.
No more celebs. We do see the very first hand, Martin Mickelson makes a royal flush.
Crazy.
Cracks 4 million chips. Havad Khan comments, Mr. Reed comments here, how nice is it to miss something much to the head?
Because he hits just a flush on the turn, I think. And that's it. Crazy.
I thought about this as Brennis is at this table as well. And Havad Khan and Brennis are kind of similar players. One's young, one's old. They have a lot of similarities. And so I guess they were inevitable squaring off. This episode was fate. But it's something definitely
They had to move them to the same table. No, it was going to happen. Come on. I don't believe for a second that was a happy accident. No problem, but
This episode, though, interesting enough, definitely focused less on the eliminations of the tournament because it's definitely kind of the part where the tournament slows down, even if temporarily.
Yeah.
It goes from 112 down to 82 left.
Yeah.
So we really get more of a focus on characters and players that we have seen up to this point. Manieri dunks off 1,000,000 chips on a flush draw. I mean, what are you doing? We do see Jerry Yang with his picture of his family.
Yep.
Kind of reminds me of from 05 Bernard Lee.
Oh yeah. And Yang's 14% to win a hand when he's all in and he gets there in the river.
Yang got some luck, so has Philip Hilm to survive. Scotty to win makes a good call. So again, this is kind of a thickening of the bullet points of each character in the tournament up to this point.
Right. Yeah.
We do see Lee Watkinson.
Yep.
Jumping up to a huge chip lead of 4.4 million.
Yep. We
do see Havad Khan describe his progression from Mortal Kombat 2, Rain Khan, to poker, how he would play 43 sit-and-goes at once. And then he had to prove it to the website because they thought he was a bot.
I think that video is still on YouTube, by the way.
I don't know how you do it without timing out on one of the hands by accident,
I don't know.
I guess if it was a 9-player sit-and-go, it's more feasible to have a heads-up or something,
It's a stunt.
I find doing 3 is, I want to be able to focus. It's hard to do 3.
I can't even do 2 personally.
I can do 2.
Yeah.
I can do 2, no problem. But the 3 is, I don't know, I feel like you want to, you're trying to play to win. You're not trying to just do it for the heck of it. So.
Yeah, I think he did it as a stunt. I doubt he did it more than once. Yeah. Ugh.
Mr. Rip Porter, who would make a deep one in 2013, we do see him. He makes a pretty crazy 6-3 offsuit bluff. Again, there weren't a ton of bluffs overall this entire tournament. It was just more kind of bad all-ins or bad.
Yeah, not too many
bad
bluffs,
plays. Yeah. But that was one of the few bluffs for sure we would see. Again, another kind of weak the nuts segment. On the face of the prop bets or side action, whatever trilogy, the rest of the nuts just kind of didn't do it for me for much of this whole tournament.
Yeah, same here.
This
in this particular segment, I didn't like that we just get Mattis's F-bomb as he's walking off. It's always great to see that clip. I understand that this was, YouTube was around in 07, but it wasn't like it was today where you can just go on YouTube and find that.
Yes.
So, it's okay to rerun that every now and again, but yeah, just like talking about tilt, and everybody's just trying to be as funny as possible.
I am happy they've done away with the championship moments from 06.
Yes, oh my god.
Because that was pretty boring.
That was pointless.
So they learned the lesson there, but nonetheless, and that's not doing it for me this year, particularly.
Yeah, not at all.
And again, probably, a top 10 hand nominee would be the Umberto Brenes hand. Ace-King suited against Havad Khan's aces.
Might just have that. I typed my notes into a email for some reason, and I just had Brenes Khan written in
big
all
letters.
Caps. In big letters.
Hearts.
It's just so perfect that Brenes has ace-king and Khan has aces, and Brenes gets a king during the flop, so he can just continue screaming through the rest of the hand, so he's never dead. And even on the river, he's got a straight to chop. It's just so great. Oh my God.
Absolutely. So,
and Khan giving the thumbs up, and he's like, "I knew he would go for it if I did that." It's just, it's so good.
I mean, those oops.
Yeah, oops. Okay, I'll look at my hand.
So so that's day 5 ends on a strong note. For sure. Episode 12, day 5, part 2. There's no color ups yet, so the chip stacks are still only getting bigger and bigger.
Yes.
This was the first year of the infamous 15K, 30K level of a 4K ante, not a 5K ante.
4K.
It doesn't make sense because it meant that they couldn't color up the 1K chips until the next level, which for me just doesn't make sense. And the majority of this episode takes place during this one level.
That's true, yeah.
They don't evenly break it down, 1/4 episode for one level or whatnot. They just go, half a day is 2 to 2.5 levels. So
yeah.
So we have Huck Seed, Kirk Morrison, and Philip Hilm at our feature table.
Yeah.
And again, what's nice is by having so many familiar names in the field still, we're able to get more than just one name we can attached to for the table one, so that for the most part, any hand is going to include one of these people in it.
Yeah, and I mean, we've sort of seen these guys before, so they don't have to spend time developing their characters. We can just get right into their gameplay, get a little bit more about their personality, too.
That being said, Huckseed goes out in 73rd with just an awful 9 big blind all of 8-7.
Yeah, really just doesn't get much going, even though he's got a decent stack.
I mean, at least go 10-4. I mean, that would do him good in 2011, but 8-7, I mean...
Leaves himself with 14K behind. I mean, what? Just...
I know, it doesn't make sense to me how you play it like that. We do see the infamous Kenny Tran versus Winston bluff hand.
Oh, yeah.
That is the best call in poker. I'm a genius! Kenny Tran with top pair on a 4 suit board. 4 of a suit board with no flush. He calls 3 streets and wins a big pot. And again, kind of the probably his biggest hand of the whole coverage.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. One of the top 250 calls in poker history.
Kenny Tran makes a second soul read in this same episode.
Oh yeah,
so this episode is really the rise of Kenny Tran and the rise of Sculling to Win.
Mm-hmm.
They both accumulate a lot of chips during this episode, which they will need because day 6 will be less kind to them.
Yep. And we do get Philip Hilm sort of for the first time substantially with his trademark stare.
Which really is not a trademark stare.
Exactly,
I think it's a weak stare.
It's all right, but, you know.
I don't think it's worth, 3 segments talking about it.
They dedicate an entire segment to him talking about it, yeah.
I mean, they're trying to give him a segment for there's a final table list.
Right,
They're trying to, and they gave Khan it, they gave him it, they gave Jerry Yang later it, so that everyone gets their fair shake of it. Raymond Rami does get very lucky against Tran I
just love Robbie just he's talking out loud. He's just like, my birthday is the 7th, and he kind of just keeps talking to himself while Tran's just in the background just walking around all nervous. It's very strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do lose Huckseed, Gus Hanson, Kirk Morrison, Doug Martin Mickelson, and Maria Ho. So this episode kind of covers the fall of a lot of the players that aren't going to make it to the final day of the tournament. So
yeah, quite
but again, it happens all in this episode, so it's a fair happenstance.
Yeah.
And then episode 13, day 6, part 1. I had never seen this episode either. This was entirely new content.
I've seen a couple of little clips from it, but for the most part, it's new.
They play from 36 players down to 18 because day 6 would end at the final table, so 9. So this is kind of half the field cut in half, and then part 2 would be again cut in half. So it's kind of clean division of the field by that editing standpoint.
Yeah, we get a couple eliminations very early on in this episode.
Before the first hand is even shown, we lose 3 players. So we're down to 33, knowing that they're playing down to 18. David Tran, number 1 in chips to start this episode. Philip Hilm second, and at the feature table we get all these characters Daniel Alai, Tuan Lam, Kenny Tran, Jerry Yang, John Kelmore, and Elite Childs all at the same table.
Yep.
Pretty crazy.
So we get a lot of characterization of these guys, which again, that's more luck to do with anything else. But it's very nice that we actually get these guys' sense of their personalities and not their stories.
And to my surprise, I guess a foreshadowing of later, we see Jerry Yang bluff Mr. Lee Childs, who does the awful thing of showing his hand as he folds, and then that would happen again later on. But it's just funny.
It's just bad play.
Lee Childs talks about losing his mom, and we know that his dad is kind of on his rail, so he's kind of got a parent motif vibe to his.
Yeah, I thought that was a very sweet segment. We see the wrestling footage that his mom used to record, and she's shaking the camera because she's so nervous. I thought that was really sweet.
It was, for sure. It's because I think home videos always have that effect on
home,
which is kind of nice. And it's authentic home videos. It's not just some insincere type thing.
Yeah.
We do get the first infamous Yang with his intervals of saying million in a bet in a hand for betting 1 million. 2 million.
And we get a very cute moment from him where he goes, I've always wanted to say that, 1 million. Just sort of to himself.
And Jerry Yang, he's a psychologist, he has 6 kids, and he mentions he uses body language to read his players. And, as bad as he plays at times, I think that there's something to his usage of body language in poker.
I mean, it's true that body language is tells.
I do feel like, I mean, he was wrong plenty, but he was also right a couple of times.
Yeah, I'm not saying he
with his
wasn't.
reads. He read Philip Hilm to a T.
Yeah, I'm not saying he wasn't.
He read Philip Hilm, he read Lee Childs to it. I mean, some of the weaker players he was able to use that effectively against.
Yeah.
I'll give him some points for that. Not a ton of points, but a few props for that.
Yeah. You can tell my tone of voice. I'm sorry. So I can't
I'm trying here. I'm trying. We kind of get a weird the nuts segment on poker hugs. I mean,
they're reaching.
They're reaching.
I'd rather have just seen like another hand than
give me some more blind man's bluff or something else besides poker hugs.
Yeah. Or just show a hand that wouldn't have made the broadcast otherwise. Mm-hmm. Just put that in there.
In a major thematic component to the main event at this point was highlighting who are the remaining bracelet winners in the field.
Yeah.
So Alex Kravchenko, a recent bracelet winner, Lee Watkinson, and of course Scotty Nguyen.
Yep.
And Kenny Tran, I guess.
No, Kenny Tran was
no bracelet. You're right.
Yeah, he was 08 that he won his bracelet.
That's right.
Yeah.
So Watkinson, we see him versus Hilm. He makes a great ace 10 high call against Hilm.
Yep.
And again, the emphasis on that is they tend to equate bracelets in the past to being the favorite.
Yeah.
Which I think is a bit of a reach because you can win one tournament doesn't mean you're top dog. But
we see Watkinson on the chip stack a lot. He's hyped up quite a bit, but we barely see him play any hands. Like he's the least characterized, I think, of the final table.
Yes, I do recall him in some of I think 04, 05 his bracelet wins. Being shown. I vaguely recall him seeing that years and years ago, but again, not in the main event, not at all.
Barely see any. He doesn't get a segment about his personality. We get nothing from him until he busts, which is very disappointing in my opinion.
This episode does refer again to the chip colors.
Yeah.
This time by Lon because they add in the 50K pink chips, and again, pink, orange, and peach. They're still in that same quadrant of the color wheel where it's just not a good idea, especially when the chip stacks are so thick.
Oh yeah.
That you can't tell how many in a row or whatever are of what color. So it can be pretty frustrating if you were a player trying to figure out how much in chips your opponent had in the middle of the hand.
Yeah. Can't tell the difference. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that, I guess, leads us down to episode 14, day 6, part 2. 18 players, down to 9. I mean, you're already exhaling.
Yeah, I mean, Scotty gets he gets so much coverage during part 1. He's not a huge stack, but he seems to be doing well for himself, right? You'd say that?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like he was relatively low, like 1 million, 2 million, 3 million chips.
Yeah, but he's not. He's holding steady. He seems happy. He tells Elson like, "I'll fly you to Paris and I'll buy you dinner," which is cute.
That was funny. Yes.
That was funny. Like,
well, halfway into day 6 now,
mm-hmm.
if you look at the chip counts of 18 left. Of the top 9 players to start, 4 of the top 9 will not make the final table, and that includes numbers 1 and 3.
Yeah.
And Scotty Nguyen begins in 17th and Kravchenko in 18th.
Right, yeah.
And so I'm always intrigued by that because you have to wonder just with ICM and how the chip stacks and how the dynamics of how that plays out because that's the final sprint to the final table.
Of course, yeah.
And that's probably the most entertaining part of the tournament for me is always that last day before the final table.
Yeah, I mean, Bill Spadia was the top stack with 11.2 million. We haven't really mentioned him. He kind of appears in and out of the coverage. He gets a segment. He's sort of the old amateur of the field that's sort of hyped up.
And wears a hat.
Yeah, and he wears a hat. Seems like a nice guy, but he's his personality isn't that distinct from other amateurs in the past. I think he loses a bunch of chips in one hand during this episode.
To Lee Watkinson, a $14 million pot.
Wow.
Which, again, $14 million, even just by final table standards, is about 11% of the chips in play.
Oof, crazy.
Which, again, is the average if you're at the final 9.
Yeah, crazy.
The very first hand of this episode is Scotty Nguyen flopping a set against Philip Hilm.
Yep.
And when Philip Hilm puts them all in, Scotty calls. Hilm does a great little, he stares his eyes into, like the corner of his gland.
Oh, yeah,
It's funny stuff. And that was the start of the infamous Philip Hilm, Scotty Nguyen poker rivalry.
Oh, my God.
And now there have been, Matisel Raymer, But so late in the tournament, this is the highest stake rivalry of the main event up to this point.
Yeah, the ones that we've seen thus far, I mean, Matasau Chacon is pretty good. I might rank this one better because Chacon...
Actually, now that you mention it, 9th and 11th place.
Yeah.
9th and 11th place.
Oh, wow, that's true, isn't it?
It's equivalent, basically.
No kidding, wow, yeah. I mean, as I was saying, like, Chacon was such a short stack. I think there's more tension to this rivalry because both of them had more chips, had potential to make the final table.
Yes.
Even if I think Matasau Chacon maybe was a little bit more entertaining than this one. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But, yeah.
So Kenny Tran, unfortunately, busts in 16th place. His reads fail him. He has top pair. Kalmar makes a nut flush on the river.
Yeah.
Tran in a similar kind of wind-up kind of maneuver of that hero call against Winston on day 5. He overplays his hand and goes out. And and of course, once the news gets back to the featured table, Wynn's like, Kenny Tran's out? He had 9 million. And
Hilm says he had 0 million.
I was at 0 million.
Yeah, because they're announcing the bust outs over the loudspeakers now.
Yes.
You can hear it in the background, so it's just great to see the news spreading around like that. Yeah, and that's sort of the first time we see Kalmar, who up till this point had been referred to as John Kalmar. Like I think we saw him back in 2005. He was called Kalmar, and I think it actually said on the screen MER instead of MAR. So they finally corrected it, which is weird.
That's right.
But yeah, first time we're really seeing him. We saw him before, but this is the first time we actually get something from him.
Now, by virtue of this being the final 2 tables, every hand is substantial.
Oh my god.
Khan has an explosive all-in against Jerry Yang, doubles up. Raymond Rami makes a great, somehow a great hero call of pocket 8s on a paired overcard board against Ray Hanson, who has 6-3. And then Rami makes a great big hand against Philip Hilm on the next hand, which kind of cripples him for the eventual events to come. So again, the rise of Rami, basically.
Yep.
And then something that just frustrates me so much is when a player with like 2 tables left will bust a player from like 12 and 11 and then goes out next, which is what Skyline Win does. He busts Ray Henson in 12th place, and then, spoilers, he goes out next. But he busts Henson, he gets up to 15 million, which is 3rd in chips, which the blinds are like probably 80K, 160K or something crazy. So that's almost 100 big blinds of 2 tables left. And the whole dynamic of the episode changes because the first half builds up the idea of a repeat champion. Can Scotty be the first one since Johnny Chan? Can he join Bill Brunson? And then it falls into the idea of Scotty just trying to get in too deep into too many hands too often.
I mean, all right, I'm going to say this. If Scotty makes the final table and he's the 5th stack or higher, he wins the tournament.
It sounds crazy on its face because it's no guarantee, but I think you might be right about that.
I'm sorry to have to say this is a little rude, this is a little blind. The 9 players who make the final table, they are the worst group of final table players. Of the 5 that we've seen thus far, I can't say we haven't seen, I don't really remember 08 through 10 through 10 that well. Maybe we'll find those players are worse. But of the 5 final tables we've seen thus far, this is the softest one, and I think Wynn would have just rolled over them.
I think so. I mean, we'll cover the final table shortly. But
I know.
You might be right about that, honestly, if I think about it. Sky to Win, his ego skyrockets once he busts Henson in 12th because he gives away $2 million to Hilm. The next, in one hand with ace 3 high when Hilm goes all in, and then he wins a big hand against Twine Lamb. Oh, Twine Lamb is here, by the way.
Yeah, his demeanor just changes completely. Like, after he wins that hand against Lamb, he's, muttering under his breath, you're going to fuck with me, I'm going to fuck with you. He's angry. Dude, you have all these chips.
He has 17 million, which, if at the final table, as it turned out, that would make it for 4th in chips at the final table. And Lon and Norm, are basically echoing our thoughts here. You do not have to do this, Scotty. What are you doing? Off-screen, on a non-broadcasted hand, there's a big pot where Sky to Win loses about 6 million chips, 5.5, 6 million chips or so to Lamb.
Yeah.
Where he had 4-3 suited, and he 3-bet with it. He made a big raise on the river, and Twine Lamb made a big call of pocket 10s on a king high board. and that brought Scotty down to the 11 million that we see him have when he ends up doubling Philip Hilm for 8 million, which brings Scotty down to 3 million. And I mean, by then the wheels are falling off. Scotty, we see him burying his face in his hands after giving away 8 million chips more to Philip Hilm, and he goes all in on a flush draw and is bounced out by a top pair by Hilm in short order.
Yeah,
and, I mean, as awful as the Philip Hilm blow up in the final table is, this might be the worst leading up to the final table blow up of all time, besides maybe 09. The guy that Turbine Bus.
Yeah, Anton Morgenstern was pretty bad, too.
That's pretty bad. This is definitely top 5 and the biggest final 2 tables main event blow-ups of all time.
I mean, I'm standing by my opinion. I think even if he's like 6th in chips at the final table, I would still say he's got like a 50% chance of winning the tournament. I just think the other players just couldn't compete with him. I know
a few beers, he's not going to play so good.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Like, something could have happened where he could have run kings into aces. I mean, poker is just so much about luck. But I think there's a very strong probability that he's going to win the tournament that year. 47 minutes passed between him having 17 million chips and 0 million in chips. I mean, it's just such an egregious blow up. And,
Well, what I'll say is that once he busts, we are obviously 10-handed. Philip Hilm way up the chip count now.
Yep.
20 plus million at this point.
Yep.
And Mr. Garfinkel,
Steve
Garfinkel, he's our bubble boy at the final table. Literally not shown the entire tournament.
I hate that.
I can't stand that. I want to know. And they only show one hand of the bubble too. It's one thing to not show the player bubbles, but that's the only hand they show from 10 down to 9, which is a shame because the final table. Granted, this is pre-November 9, but nonetheless, there's tension there.
Yeah.
There's money to be won. There's people trying to fold their way to and the agonizing decisions you must make to get down to the final 9. Those are worth seeing.
Yeah.
And you would be fooled by the editing to think they lasted one hand or a few hands, but the bullet play lasted 37 hands.
Wow.
That's almost 4 orbits around the table.
Yeah.
Garfinkel had 5 million chips at the start of the final table bubble, which would have put him in last place at the final 9 with the way the chips worked out. But I believe he's all in for like 3 million or so, 3.5 million when he goes all in, so he was down a bit. But so again, I feel kind of bad for him for not being able to, be shown for his 10th place. He gets, one hand of coverage.
Yeah, I mean, Goldberg got a little bit of coverage. Hilm got a lot of, not Hilm, what's his name?
Ihan Olsenjack?
No, not Ihan Olsenjack. Yeah, Ihan Olsenjack also got some coverage.
Marcel Lusk.
Why did I say it was Hilm? Lusk got some coverage. Yes. Phil Ivey got coverage.
Yes.
The last 4 10th place finishers all got some amount of publicity. What the heck did Garfunkel do to deserve that?
Yes.
I don't know.
So we obviously reached the final table. And again, just looking at the final 9, we have literally seen all 9 of these people.
Yeah.
Not equally offended, but Havad Khan definitely the lion's share of the coverage. Tuan Lam probably the least meaningful coverage. I mean, he's just kind of there.
Yeah.
In second place somehow. We don't know how he got
exactly.
21 million chips, a one hand behind Philip Hilm, basically.
Yeah, that's just weird.
But again, so of all the 5 years we covered so far, definitely the best edited up to the final table as far as giving us some taste of everybody.
Yeah.
Something. Just give me something. Give me a small taste.
Sure. I'd say that, yeah.
And this low little guy named Jerry Yang, 8.45 million in 8th place. I mean, there's no way he's going to win this whole thing, right?
No way. Philip Hilm all the way, man.
Lee Watkinson, the kind of the quote-unquote top pro with 1.3 million in WSOP earnings, has 3 to 4 times more earnings in the World Series than the rest of the table combined.
Yeah.
So and again, middle of the pack in 6th place, just under 10 million. So not great, but the blinds are like 120, 240K. So that's still good for like 42 big blinds. So.
Yeah, he'll stomp it. He'll do great.
Yeah. So much like years past, the final table broken down into 2 episodes.
Yep.
Yeah, the first one going from 9 down to 5, and then 5 down to 1, so just kind of right down the middle.
Yep.
But trust me when I say this is no way an equal breakdown of the number of hands played.
Oh, no.
From 9 down to 5 and 5 down to 1.
Yeah.
I vaguely recall. I mean, I didn't watch this main event on TV when it was airing for the first time. I remember going to like Yahoo.com one day. It's like, oh, Joe Yang wins. Like, whoa, who's that?
Yeah.
Because I had watched 06, but not 07.
Yeah.
So again, I really had no vibe of who to expect to win. From the 07 brain version of me.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Watkinson and Kravchenko, because they were the bracelet winners, they're the ones that were expected to. I mean, Kravchenko was a short stack.
Both of them were really kind of short stacked. I mean, this was a relatively compressed chip count. I mean, there was obviously a gap of 16 million between first and ninth, but nobody was super, super short, and the chip leaders, the top three, were all kind of in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
And the middle stack's not too far behind, given the bet sizing and the raise sizing. Really not too much of a stretch to say they were all in the same wheelhouse chip count-wise.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the coverage I saw, I mean, again, just on Google, typing in 2007 World Series of Poker main event, I mean, a lot of the coverage was focused on Scotty win busting. Yes. Everybody was heartbroken about that. Supposedly, the security guards in the casino left their post to watch Scotty play. Like, everybody was so hyped to see Scotty make it, and he didn't do that, so...
Something about the curse of the 11th place finish.
I know.
Ronnie won 11th place twice in his career. It was going to win.
Ugh,
so the final table in totality was a total of 205 hands.
Yeah.
And starting in 07, WSOP.com did a much better job of having a record of each hand, what happened, the action, the chip counts, a bit more regularly updated. And I was surprised to see that despite being in 8th place, Jerry Yang, he won 5 of the first 9 hands.
Yeah.
He won the very first 2 hands as well. And he wins the very first hand shown on TV, the TV episode, which was hand number 9, actually. So he had won 4 of the first 8 hands. And despite his activity at the table, Lee Childs makes one of the wimpiest, worst plays I've ever seen.
I just can't believe it.
So a little context here. Yang has 2 jacks. Childs has 2 queens. Yang, this is kind of the start of him raising pretty big pre-flop. Childs and Yang see a flop. It's all undercards. Childs makes a bet, and Yang goes all in over the top. And just by virtue of all these early hands, Yang had won. By the time Childs folds this hand, where he not only does that, but he shows his cards and tries to beg Jerry to show his hand, where their tables, Rami is saying bad fold.
Of course it's a bad fold.
Yang has jumped already up the chip count substantially, just one orbit in.
I mean, Childs gets out of his seat and is like rubbing his hands back and forth, clearly nervous, and talking to his dad.
Who, to be fair, his dad does not try to say anything that would be against the rules. He tries to keep it like you do. He keeps it focused on Lee.
Yeah. Well, even Norm mentions, like, as a joke, but, stretching the 1 player per hand rule a little bit.
Yes, absolutely.
But geez, like, I mean, I guess that's the one thing that I can give Jerry a little bit of credit for. Like, he just seemed to, like, get in everybody's heads with this Lee Childs thing, where Childs is, like, begging Jerry to show his cards, and Jerry just keeps it coy. And then
he does it, he'll tap the table as if it's like whatever.
And then we get this quote from Javad Khan. I don't know how genuine it is. I don't know whether or not to believe it, but Khan calls Jerry the best player I've ever played with in my life. Keep in mind that Khan had previously played Umberto Brenes and Gus Hanson and all of these other top players. It's Jerry Yang who's the best player Javad Khan.
I almost kind of believe that these are a pair of first-timers in the main events, and Yang got to the final 9. In the coverage, we're going to see every hand he plays, or a lot of the hands he plays. And maybe he saw some great plays from Yang that we just didn't see.
I'm sorry, I just don't believe.
The poker pros always emphasize how many bad players there were in these years.
Yeah.
And for all we know, Yang was running into players making bad plays versus him, and he was able to make the good play against them.
It does make me want to go back in time and, face off against Javad Khan during some tournament before the main event, because if Jerry's the best player he's ever played with, I can only imagine how much his competition would be.
So again, we have the start of the first Yang Empire kind of beginning. And Yang starts with a little bit of confidence, a little bit of swagger. He starts upping his pre-flop raise size even bigger. In this case, he makes a 10x raise to 2.5 million. Blind are still 120 and 240K. And Philip Hilm decides to call it out of the big blind out of position with King Queen against Jerry Yang's pocket eights. And the flop comes Ace 10 8. And Yang begins his X million rampage where he just 3 million, and then Philip Hilm in this first square off of them does end up making a fold after committing about 5.5 million of his chips to the pot.
Yeah, I love when he calls, it cuts to the audience, and there's the Danish poker pros gathered there, and they all hate his play. They're all just like covering each other in the Danish flag. Like, dude, Yang bets 3 million into the pot. You have maybe King High's good here once or twice, but like, come on, dude, you gotta fold.
This was hand number 14 at the final table. We do get a segment about Jerry Yang's past, his refugee from Laos, kind of his historical backstory, and I think that was very intentionally put because they're trying to hide the fact that the very next hand is the Philip Hilm bust out hand. Yeah. Because hand number 15 is Philip Hilm versus Jerry Yang. Once again, Jerry Yang puts in a million chips pre-flop. Philip Hilm goes with 8-5 suited. Philip Hilm ends up making a pair and a flush draw by the turn against Yang's top pair. Philip Hilm tries to, I guess, bluff Yang off the bet. I don't know what the all-in was supposed to look like.
Yeah, I don't know either.
He moves all in. Jerry Yang makes a tough but correct call. And a huge pot, probably like, 30-something million?
Something like that. Huge, just ICM blow up. I mean, I just can't even describe
It's even worse considering how low the payouts are for the early bust ups.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, and from Philip Hilm, 22 million to begin the final table. He really could have folded his way to at least the top 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And he ends up going all in with a 30% chance hand. And he misses. Yang gets up to 44 million, and from there it's pretty much Yang Nation.
We do have to talk about the bearded lady concession. What the heck was Havad Khan trying to do after the turn? Like, Khan's like, if you can't see the video of what Ben just did. Khan's just like throwing his hands out to the side. He's like miming, like shoveling.
He's like showing his arms in a weird. It's just the weirdest thing. Now, I wonder if that was kind of a way to psych himself up, because by that point, Khan, again, short-stacked a bit, had been very passive at the table, hadn't played any hands, hadn't won any hands by this point.
Yep.
So I wonder if he was just trying to bring his energy level back up. Maybe the Red Bull wasn't quite working for him.
I guess so. I mean, I suppose he was trying to break the tension. It cuts to Hilm, and Hilm kind of smiles. Maybe they sort of cut that in from a different hand or angle.
It's possible.
But, yeah, I mean, I just don't know what to make of it.
But, maybe it works because the next hand shown is Khan raising a Jack-3 offsuit, and he wins the blinds and antes, and he does a celebration to his crowd because by that point it was all just kind of fold and hold your head down for Khan by that point.
Yep, he screams, "That's right, baby, let's keep going," and then does, I don't even know what, like, weird, like, seizure thing, snapping his head around, sticking his tongue out.
I mean, they should put on Red Bull the side effects might include bizarre poker celebrations.
Exactly. And there's a great little moment where Chris Ferguson is sitting in the back row, and he's off in the shadows, and Khan, like, turns to him and goes, "Jesus!" It's like shouting at him. It's a great moment.
So 8 remain at this point. And here we go. Hand number 21 of the final table. Blind versus blind. Jerry Yang, ace-9 in the small blind. Lee Watkinson, ace-7 in the big blind. Lee Watkinson, Yang, he raises it to 1 million, so about a 4x raise. And Watkinson decides, this is a great idea. Let me raise almost 10 million on all in with ace-7 in the big blind.
He had like 30 bigs or something.
I think like 33 bigs.
Like, dude, ace-7 off with 30 bigs, and you're probably the most skilled player at the table. What the heck are you doing?
I mean, 10 million chips. He's one of the lower stacks. I get it.
I get that, but pick a better spot.
Or make it like or make it like 3 million or something, because an all-in kind of almost feels weaker.
like what? Like what are you doing? Like
a 4x raise and then a 10x raise on top of the 4x raise.
Like what?
It's just a terrible all-in. I mean, I understand the power of an ace in the big blind. I get that.
Yeah.
But you have all these. You have still a lot of chips, and you have a guy who is kind of not a great player on your right. Is a chip leader. You can kind of play off that. Okay, you don't have to force the issue.
Yeah, I mean, like, what are you Are you expecting? Like, I just don't. Are you expecting him to call? Or are you trying to get him off his hand?
I think he's trying to get him to fold. He's trying to get
him to
king
fold.
queen, maybe king jack, but. I mean, it's
why would you even take that risk?
You're risking
ace-7.
You're risking 10 million to win like $1.5 million back. It doesn't make sense to me.
But then this is probably the most infamous hand of the final table. It's featured all throughout YouTube because what can only be described as a holy war ensues between Jerry Yang and Lee Watkinson's wife as they're both trying to pray to God. Why pray to God? Like, they're both shouting, like, prayers.
Please, God.
In front of everybody.
Give us the light of, like, an ace on the river. Like,
yeah. Make Lee a believer, Father. Like, all of these, like, prayers just out loud in front of everybody throughout the entire hand.
We had seen Jerry Yang will do this move again.
Right.
But to see both sides do it, it's something else. Like, God's going to play a favorite, I guess, apparently.
Exactly. Like, we don't want to denigrate anyone's religious beliefs or practices or anything.
But I think even the most devout person watching this hand would be
it's a little ridiculous.
Confused.
It's a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And yeah, we bust everybody. Have an 8th place.
Our the nuts segment of the 07 main event is the flushies, which returns from years past. We only get 3 flushes this time, though.
Yep.
We get the best catchphrase, the best prop, and the best athlete. The only one I really laughed at was, of course, the best athlete, Billy Gates being clocked on the head by the football, which is really kind of the worst athlete award, but...
Upsetting Phil Hellmuth and his excellent driving skills. I mean, I don't know, man. I think you got to give it to Phil Hellmuth after all that.
I agree, because really it's the intern that should win the flush.
Yeah, exactly. It's a collaborative award, yeah.
Yeah. I will say, though, that the Watkinson Lee Watkinson Jerry Yang hand, that's one of the few times where I was, like, watching the raise interval.
Yeah.
That was really one of the few times that it had been a huge problem for me in years past. This was kind of a bit better overall the whole year, but just atrocious, sorry.
Just horrible.
Is it worse than the Lee Child's fold with the Queens, though?
They're both so close to each other in terms of quality. I think they're both horrible plays.
I guess the lesson is don't have the first name Lee.
Yeah, don't have the first name Lee.
If you want to do well the final table.
Yeah, and speaking of Lee Childs...
Lee Childs tries to fight back with King Jack against Jerry Yang's Jack 8 suited. Again, blind versus blind. And Lee does the same thing of talking to his dad during the hand. Again, not quite breaking a rule, but also not quite not breaking a rule.
And look, he makes the correct call, so to speak, but it's still King Jack off, and you've got all those chips. I mean, I get it, like, okay, maybe you read into, like, I don't get it.
I know it's blasphemous in your poker Bible, basically. That kind of play.
I just don't. It's King Jack offsuit. What are you hoping for? That he's got Queen 3?
Well, it's one thing if you're going to raise all in with it. It's one thing to call an all in with it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, even if you're getting a little bit tilted, and he even says to his dad at one point, like, it can't be that he's picking up all these hands. Like, even if it's like Queen 3 or something, and you're a 60% favorite, do you really want to take that risk with King Jack offsuit when you can fold and play another hand and find a better spot for yourself? A flip? Like, do you want to take a flip in that spot? Yeah, he's got Jack 8. You're a 2-1 favorite. Do you still want to be in that position? 7th place doesn't get you that much money. Just wait for a better spot, Lee. I mean, that 8 on the turn was almost divine sanction for how bad that play was. Oh my God. Like, Childs has gone on to have a decent career. I checked his Hen and Mom page. He's won, I think, something like $1 million over the last 10 years. Decent. Mm-hmm. Not like world-class great player, but decent.
Yes.
But, like, dude, come on, man. Like, I mean, this was his first tournament cash, but whatever. Yeah. Like, ugh.
So Yang gets the bust out. 3 for 3 for bust outs. Mm-hmm. Yang has, in just 28 hands, gone from $8.5 million to 62 million chips. which is about just under half of the total chips in play, with 6 players left.
Crazy.
John Calmar had been a non-factor in the edit up to this point. He does win a hand against Yang, a kind of a hero call of Ace King. Calmar began the final table in third in chips. Didn't really, mostly just kind of maintain the stack during his run on the final table, but didn't make any total horrible plays like his table mates did.
Yeah, I mean, he picks Yang off for a few chips. He bullies Khan a little bit. Oddly enough, like when I was a kid, I thought I'd seen more of Calmar in the edit. It was just the British accent that I liked and the Family Guy T-shirts. I don't know, but like I was surprised by how low his edit was. You get the segment about his T-shirts and being in a punk rock band, which is kind of cute. But that's about it.
We do see Khan win a hand against Calmar, where he kind of slow plays a full house, and then he does a very small little fist pump kind of reaction as if he's trying to conserve his energy for the rest of the event, which of course isn't very long. Hand number 56. So again, just over 1/4 of the total hands played in the final table. Khan kind of awkwardly goes out against Yang. Ace Queen against Jacks. Now 6-handed is a different brand of poker than 7, 8, 9-handed. It's very common in a lot of tournaments. It's not really relevant to the main event until the final 6, of course. But so again, Ace Queen suited 6-handed isn't terrible.
It's not terrible. It's just the way that Khan plays it. Yang goes to $1.5 million. Khan makes it $6 million. He doesn't shove.
He has only about $9.5 million to start the hand.
Right. Yang calls, and Khan decides to shove in the dark, eliminating his post-flop options. The flop was like King Deuce 4 or something.
Now, on that point, I actually think the math behind that is okay because
it's okay.
You're going to have around $12 million in the pot, 3.5 back, so the stack to pot ratio is 4-1. And against any pocket pair that misses the flop, and Khan misses the flop, his odds are to win the hand about 25% anyway.
Yeah.
So he's got to call the all in anyway, even if he misses. If he checks and Yang goes all, he's got to call it anyway.
I guess so, but I just.
And he's giving Yang a chance to fold, as unlikely as it is. There was an overcard on the board. If the board comes Ace, Queen, King, unlikely but possible, Yang will obviously fold the jacks. But again, it's an awkward all in. He had 32 big blinds to open the hands. You're 6-handed. You're Khan. I just kind of maybe overplaying it. Maybe you can call a face queen, but if you're trying to win,
and it's just odd. So Khan says Jerry, I'm all in the dark. Jerry says you're all in the dark, okay. And then Khan goes, so you call, and he's like nothing, you call. And Yang says understand, but like no, I'd like to see the flop.
I haven't said anything yet.
Which is weird. It was like it's almost like Khan is inviting Yang to call. Like, does he really want to go on a flip right there? I just don't. I again don't get that play. I just don't get it. Doesn't make sense.
Unfortunately, Khan bricks the rest of the board out. He goes out in 6th place, and again, he only wins 956,000 chips. Dollars.
Only $1 million.
For 6th place in the main event, I just feel like it's a bit of a
what was it last year? Like something like $1.5 million or something.
Yeah.
But
And we have arguably the tallest player on the table against the shortest player on the table. It's kind of an interesting little contrast when the two exchange handshakes and you have a friend for life at the end of the hand. So by this point, Yang has busted all 4 players at this final table. He's chipped way the heck up. We have not seen a single bit of Tuan Lam whatsoever.
Nope.
Even though he began the table second in chips. We're just 56 hands into the final table.
Yep.
Kravchenko hasn't played a hand, really.
Well, he shoved against Khan and got the double up.
Oh, that's right. He played one hand. That's right.
He played one hand.
We now have the lavender 100K chips and the beige 250K chips. But the first Yang dynasty hits its peak, its rise. We have one of the most embarrassing 9th place finishes in main event history.
Oh, my God.
Embarrassing the worst.
The second...
Most shocking... Maybe second place.
The second funniest 9th place finish. We will get to the first one in a little bit, and we'll have plenty of fun with that one. But for now, second funniest.
Yes. And here we go to the final episode, episode 16, Final Table Part 2. The Millionaires, now a Millionaires Club. So like
Millionaires.
04, where the top 5 are millionaires, everyone here is guaranteed $1.25 million. And again, Joe Yang has over half the chips in play.
Yep, 73 million or something like that.
Exactly.
They start the episode with the traditional bring the money on and dump it on a table, which is a sick intimidation tactic, to say the least. Everybody's looking at it and admiring it.
And hand number 60. So again, this is just 4 hands after Khan busts.
Mm-hmm.
We see John Kalmar bust to Raymond Rami in a flip, which is a little bit odd because the blind's 150K, 300K. Rami makes it 9x pre-flop, so I guess maybe he's trying to do his best Yang impersonation.
Yeah.
And John Kalmar goes all in for $13 million, so about 43 big blinds.
Ugh.
I mean, it's 5-handed. It's ace-king.
I know, but go all in. Just call.
A 9x raise, though. It's a little crazy.
It's just
how do you read into a 9x raise? Like, it's a weird.
I know it's a weird thing, but I just don't think it's a good play to shove over the top with 43 bigs. Just see a flop.
I guess.
See what happens.
Well, at this point, with 4 left, I was reading the blogs of all the hand entries, and I guess Yang was winning a lot of hands pre-flop, the small pots.
Right,
he was
exactly.
winning all the small pots, but then he was getting doubled up through by, bigger pots through by Kravchenko, by Chuan Lam. Kravchenko doubles up in the coverage 3 times, and I saw a statistic actually of the final table. So of the first 120 hands, Yang won 47 of them.
Wow.
And of the first 160, he won 63 of those hands.
Jeez, wow.
And I mean, as the chip leader, you're going to win. You're going to be involved in more hands.
Right, yeah, of course.
Kravchenko, he goes from short stack from like 3 million at one point in the final table up to about 27 million. Chuan Lam goes from like 10 or 12 to like 20 something million. And again, decent chunks of Yang, but he never quite gives up the chip lead.
No, he never gives up the chip lead.
This is kind of the karmic balancing of all the luck he had up until this point.
Yep.
He's still in the chip lead, just not as overwhelming. He was really 1 hand away from giving away the chip lead until the hand that he busts out Kravchenko, hand number 167. So again, a lot of back and forth. Rami had won some hands. Everyone had doubled up through somebody by this point.
Yeah.
And Yang busts Kravchenko, and then 2 hands later, 3-handed play lasted 2 hands. Raymond Rami overplays 2 kings on an ace-high flop. That alone should set off alarms to even the worst poker player. Rami had so many chips. I think Rami had like 30-something million chips. The blinds were, I think, maybe 250, 500K or something.
Yeah, I think no, it was 300, 600.
300, 600. That's right.
Still, yeah, that's a lot of chips. Like, come on, dude. And also just Rami's demeanor during. So Yang's sitting there, he's deliberating. Rami just sort of out of nowhere goes, "It's your decision. It's your decision. Stop looking at me. It's your decision."
It's his like South African accent, so maybe it's not as clear to Jerry Yang.
Yeah.
But it's just the most weak sauce table talk of all time. Like he keeps repeating it like 5-6 times, and Yang, who had been trying to use body language and verbal cues to make his calls. I mean, this is an example of what I was saying. How I feel like that was a key component of why he called.
Yeah, of course. Like if I were in Yang's spot and I see this guy Rami clearly nervous, like I'm gonna call with Ace-5. I mean, granted, Yang reads him as having a draw, which is he does.
I think you're on a draw.
I think you're on a draw, and as Norm even makes a point to say his reads are actually erratic, which is very funny.
Yes.
But man, wow,
huge hand that Rami kind of blows it with, and with him out, heads up play begins with Chuan Lam, and he basically folded his way somehow to the final 2.
Yeah.
And he began second in chips, so I mean, it wasn't like he didn't deserve to make it far from how he began, but the chip count was 104 million to 23 million.
Yep.
And Chuan Lam got completely wrecked heads up.
Yep.
If you track each individual hand heads up, Chuan Lam only won a small handful. He did double up at one point. The hand was not shown because TV heads-up play only showed the last hand, the bust-out hand, hand 205. But heads-up play lasted 36 hands in total. Lamb, I think, won maybe like 10 hands.
Yeah.
So it was lopsided. And I'm shocked they didn't show his double-up hand. You want to flip on hand number 192.
And he also managed to call one of Yang's river bluffs. I think it was actually the hand 204 before he busted out. So you could have shown one of those. We break the tradition of showing two hands, one of which the second place finisher wins, the other which is the last hand, which is interesting.
Yes.
We instead get this, like, it felt like a minute-long like segment, like hyping up the heads-up match, and then we just get the final hand, which is weird.
The final hand being an all-in pre-flop ace-queen against pocket eights. I think this was the first time the final hand was a flip because all the other ones up to this point were not all-in at pre-flop.
Yeah.
So this was the first all-in pre-flop. Heads up. And while Tuan Lam does hit a queen on the flop, Jerry Yang turns a straight draw and then hits the river to win. And Tuan Lam wins almost $5 million, which, again, for second place, still pretty impressive. Numbers doesn't compare to 06 main event, obviously, but still worth celebrating over in a sense. But Jerry Yang takes it down. And I believe for the first time in the whole tournament coverage, we see him with sunglasses on.
I think that's true.
Because I was caught by because I'm so used to seeing his face with the shades on that I didn't realize that's what his face looked like.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that is the first time we see his glasses off. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this episode was mostly just hands that were all-ins, pre-flop.
Yeah, it was.
On the flop.
The narrative is Yang's losing his stack. The commentators mention over and over again how devastated Yang must be. They sort of present the last hand with Kravchenko like Yang's going to lose. He's going to be the short stack, and then it kind of turns around. His luck turns around. I still found it an entertaining episode. I really liked the Kalmar Ramey hand because they're both so personable and they're taking it very well. And Rami even asked to kiss Yang's photograph, and Yang, stone-faced, like, not funny, not trying to be humorous or anything. He's like, "It's my kids, dude. Like, I'm not gonna let you kiss a photograph of my kids," which I thought was funny. And we get one segment from Lam. He wants to build a temple. That's it.
That's right. I almost forgot to point that out. That's right.
I don't know if he built it or not.
Probably not.
He said in an interview, I think in 2014, that he gave some of his money back. He lost some of his money back online. So
hopefully just some. Yeah. Yes. I mean, again, an episode that's dedicated to most of just all-ins.
Yeah.
But given the build-up to with part one of the final table, it did kind of work for me in that
it worked for me. It worked for me.
Mm-hmm. And so I was sort of bringing together all my thoughts of the whole tournament after watching this entire rewatch here. First off, of course, I was surprised by how little Table 2 was used.
Yep.
When it's done at the two tables, to even refer to as Table 2 is a little misleading.
Yeah.
It's more of when there's a whole room full of players is Table 1, Table 2.
Mm-hmm.
Only used a handful of times. I did feel the bet sizing was better in this tournament until the very end. The pre-flop raise size and the re-raise size and whatnot, that was more in line with modern day poker for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was a greater plethora of both celebs and pros in, so there was less of focusing on just the few pros that were up. Like 06, it was all Cunningham, Lissandro, Prahlad Freeman. Here it was a bit more spaced out evenly.
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
And everyone at the final table was shown in some capacity before day 6. Not just on the day before the final table, but up until like day 3, 4, 5, everyone was shown in some facet.
Yeah, I mean, Khan obviously gets the biggest edit before the final table.
Yes.
Hilm, we get the stare, which, as we mentioned, is not that much of a stare. I'd say we really get more of a better sense of his personality through his tension with Scotty Nguyen.
Absolutely.
His table talk with Scotty, come and double me up. But also, like, right before Scotty's last hand, he does seem kind of respectful. He's like, it's you and me against Scotty, good luck, which I thought was, like, a nice sort of human moment to show. I would have liked to have seen more from, we didn't get really anything from Watkinson in terms of personality.
Correct.
Nothing in terms of Watkinson. I would have liked to have seen more from Kalmar early on. I would have liked to have seen more from Tuan Lam. But I'd say, overall, we get a moment from everybody at some point, even if it's just their bust-out hand. I still have some problems with the evenness of the edit and the personalities there.
Okay, that's fair.
I would probably say, if we're going to rank the seasons,
yes,
I think this is number one.
My gut instinct was to agree with you,
Mm-hmm.
but then I thought that some of the early day ones were kind of lame, and even though there were 2 episodes that were brand new to me,
Mm-hmm.
they weren't knockout episodes for me though. I
Okay,
feel that I was listing as we were going through some of my favorite hands, the Jack High call on day 1,
Yeah.
the little hands on top. I didn't have too many hands like that for the whole tournament.
I mean, all the Jamie Gold hands are great.
Well,
I love all
mean
those.
that is that's probably my favorite episode of the whole coverage.
Might very well be. I mean, Jamie Gold gets the best 1 or 2
Jack
episodes.
Geary, Phil Hellmuth, Jamie Gold, episode 4, definitely my favorite of of all 16.
There's not too many big hands, is there, until day 6?
Yeah, I mean, this main event ends on a very strong note in entertainment value. The last 3 episodes in particular, but I do tend to really enjoy the last episode before the final table.
Yeah, me
That's
too.
usually among my favorites. The final table, I mean, it's I think a more fun to watch final table than the last couple of years, because not only did we get 2 episodes, not 1 like in 04, but I feel that there was a strong narrative to the whole final table.
Yeah.
Whereas 06 didn't. It was really just kind of
The
half-assed.
Gold
Gold, Cunningham, but even that wasn't really true for the first half of it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say in terms of just like sheer entertainment value, personalities, blow-ups, sort of excitement, I'd say that this is number 1. But in terms of the poker play, I'd say I'm still standing by my decision that this is the softest final table of the 5 we've seen. I would have liked to have seen, a couple of the segments were kind of weak. We didn't really need to see Bill Spadia's segment. I don't think we really need to see from that guy Olsen or what his name was.
Mm-hmm.
The nut segment, besides
the
prop bet Olympics, weren't necessary. I would have liked to have seen a few more hands. Yeah, I mean, it's not perfect, but I would still say I side more with entertainment than I do with learning about poker, so to speak. The purpose of the show is to be entertaining.
Yes.
That's the purpose of this. If you don't make an entertaining show, no one's going to care about the poker play.
I agree.
Yeah.
But I do feel that some of the early episodes were not entertaining or great poker. Because a lot of the hands are pretty bland, and that kind of waters your attention down when the hands are just kind of, real raise here, fold in.
That's fair, yeah. I'm still going to say it's number 1.
It might be for me if I really scrub my brain here. I mean, it's between 05 and 07 because so many celebs making deep runs, so many pros that we've grown to know through the years of coverage are playing more prominent roles, and again, the slicker production editing of the whole production is definitely improved compared to years prior, and again, less oppressive. Advertising. I mean, it's still there.
Still
there.
Oh my God.
But it's growing pains. It's definitely better for sure.
Sure, yeah.
So it's definitely, and again, with the more international field, that will continue to expand, and this is definitely a light sort of seasoning of that into the meal of the main event here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, my rankings, I guess, right now would be 07, 05, 06, 03, 04. That feels good. I feel
okay. I'm in that ballpark for sure.
Yeah.
I'd have to really review my brain here. It's somewhere. I mean, 05, 07 are top 2 for me.
Yeah.
And then I think I have to go 06, 04, 03. I think.
Okay.
I forget if I put 03 or 04 higher above the other one. I might have put 03 above 4.
I think you might have put 03 before. I mean, I put 04 to the bottom just because I don't think the final table amounted that much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I liked some of the later play, but I thought it was, they're still sort of trying to find their footing in the editing and stuff like that. So,
okay.
Okay.
So I think before we end this podcast, I think it's only fair that we point out that we had some amazing growth in our podcast after our last episode. We had a substantial rise in our subscribers and our views, and I think the community is more engaged in our podcast more than ever before.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. You can check us out on our Facebook page, the Two Fish at the Table Podcast. We're also on 2+2 forums. We regularly post there. We encourage people to comment, subscribe, and engage us we want to include our fans in our podcast in any way possible. Give us questions, give us comments, feedback. Tell us you hate us. We don't mind. Just let us know.
Yep, we do read all your comments. We are trying to get a NordVPN sponsorship, so it would really be helpful if you guys could do that. Speaking of protecting your hand, NordVPN. This is the newest technology. I'm just kidding, guys.
No, this will always be an ad-free, politics-free podcast. We really think that's important to the integrity of our podcast because this is about poker. This is about entertainment. It's not about taking out a 5-minute ad break in the middle of a podcast to waste people's time.
Yes, thank you to Wilbury Twist on the 2+2 forums. That's I ripped off your joke there. Sorry about that, but that's my favorite comment about the podcast thus far. Was
Absolutely.
Yours. Yeah, and in case you guys were wondering about the Mind Sports Olympiad, which I competed in, I did the first 5 events. I got 18th out of something like 200 people in the No Limit Hold'em event. I cashed in 2 of the other 4 events I played 5 in total. I was 4th place at one point. Then I went on vacation for 2 weeks, went to the beach, couldn't play poker, so I dropped down the leaderboards. So I did finish in the top 40, which is decent. My name's listed on the website if you want to go check. And I don't know how many people competed in the event overall. I think from what I can remember in the different tournaments I played, there were a couple hundred people. So I imagine it's something like that. So, top 40 out of 250 competitors is
when you didn't play in majority of the...
Yeah, I got 5th place in 2020, and I actually got a medal in a non-poker event in 2020.
Like a physical medal?
Yeah, a physical medal.
Where is it?
It's in my room.
Yeah. I want to see that medal later. Wow.
Yeah.
When you cash in an event, what do you win for that? Points or something?
It's a point-based system, cashing, non-cashing.
So you only get points if you cash?
No, you do get points if you don't cash.
Well, then what's the point of cash? What's the barrier of cashing?
Cashing's like... Well, it's like a Poker Stars.
You can show me later.
Yeah.
That's fine.
But yeah, last year in 2020, I got a bronze medal in creative thinking. This year I got 5th place. Still good, but, no medal there. Oh. But sorry I couldn't bring home a medal for 2 Fish at the Table Nation. But I'll try again next year. Ben's offer still stands, by the way. If you ever knock either of us out of a tournament,
or on Poker Stars,
if you ever bump into us and we're playing poker, whether it is live or at a online tournament, and you want to say hi. We'll screenshot it. We'll try to screenshot it at least, and we'll give you a shout out on the podcast.
Right. Yeah. And so next time on the 2 Fish at the Table podcast, we cover the 2008 World Series of Poker main event, the first year of the marketing strategy of the November 9, where they play down to 9 and then produce episodes of the main event and then refilm in November to film the final table. And
we'll be talking a lot about that because that's a very big development.
It changes so much. It changes so much.
My God.
And it will be standard in the main event for years to come. For 10 years? Almost, no, 8, 9 years?
Something like that. I think what was the last year? Was 2016 the last year?
Yeah, so 8 or 9 main events would continue that tradition. And again, the evolving poker styles will continue, and we'll see more prominent pros making very deep runs and making some very good and some very bad plays and some very infamous blow-ups.
Yep. And, I think that's about it. Do make sure to go and visit Jerry Yang's restaurant. It's Shobu Japanese cuisine in Fresno, so you can go.
Hey, it's no ads, man.
Oh,
no
sorry.
Ads.
Oh, no. Darn it. All right, take care, y'all.
And we'll see you.